Hi guys, I'm Björn.
And I'm Tasty Graph, and this is Book Club, Game Development Book Club.
Woohoo! We nailed it! First
Yes.
time.
Yeah, I think that was the first time that we actually did it.
Everybody can hear us well? Is the sound, is the picture? You can see everything? Let's double check before we get started with all the juicy stuff we have today. We don't have to wait for them to answer, but if someone has something we can. So, we have a new chapter. So you weren't here for the last two chapters, but that's okay.
Yeah,
Um, we're now
I
going
read them.
into the experience is in the player's mind chapter.
Yep.
Did you have anything in the previous chapters you wanted to mention? It had a lot of stuff, but
No, I looked over the vodcast, and I think a lot of it felt a little bit old school with how you put players into the different categories. I mean, to some extent, I agree with it, and I've seen it a lot in MMOs, but I just feel like today you kind of like most games spread across loads of these categories, and you don't like it. It was designed from a more RPG perspective, I think. So the whole I don't know. I think the last chapter was a bit too theoretical in a way.
yeah, it has a lot of stuff, and it kind of, I mean, it's good to cover, and it would feel like it was missing if you didn't cover it, but at the same time, I think um, it's not something I would use a lot. Like I do use target audiences, and I try to think through them, but I don't know if these categorizations help me that much.
Mm.
Hi Nascent Games. By the way, guys, remember to go check out the game dev booth at TwitchCon. And Nascent Games, for example, is one of them who's gonna present his game there.
Oh, cool.
Woohoo! Well, welcome. Oh, your camera is blinking a bit, but I think it went away.
Oh, good. Yeah, I did see a blink, but I hope it's not permanent.
But yeah, let's just get started with the chapter. So, it talks. So the chapter's name. Hey, thanks for the follow, Nascent Games. The experience in the player's mind. So it goes kind of through psychology and how your brain works and how that affects how you perceive things, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of talk. And it kind of it shows some images and it shows figures as well and sort of explains without really getting into the sciencey stuff, but it explains about how something inside of our brain is able to solve problems for us both visually but also on a more sort of abstract level. um, and it talks about how you can influence people to think in a certain way by repeating specific words. Like there's this thing where it says, say the word boast 5 times. And then Bjorn says boast
Boast,
five
boast,
times.
boast, boast, boast.
And then I say, spell the word boast out loud.
Boast.
And then
Almost.
I ask him, what do you put in a toaster?
Toast, of course.
Yeah, but that would be wrong,
Oh,
apparently, because this book says you put bread in a toaster. And so
it's
that's one of the examples where it's like, you kind of get influenced to say something. Um, I would have said toast, even if you like, we call it toast here in Denmark. So, for me, it was like, that doesn't work, but I understand the gist of it.
yeah, I have the similar, like here we have like a bread that's basically, well, you have it everywhere in the world, is the toast bread, which is
Yeah,
like made
exactly.
to put in the toaster. I call that toast too.
Yep. And
Hello
that's what we
Speed
call
Pod.
it here as well.
Yeah. Streaming
Hello,
third your
Speed Pod
toaster is not
Games.
here. Sorry, I had to keep talking over you.
That was just me. I was just saying hello to Speed Pod Games.
Yeah, he's taking your throne, dude. How do you feel about that? Let's spend like 10 seconds discussing your feelings.
I feel pretty good about it because I was starting to feel like no one else was using your bit system and no one else was sending stuff. So I think it's kind of neat. Um, I wish more people would compete for the throne.
Yeah,
Are we done? 10 seconds yet?
yeah, I think that's 10 seconds. I think I have some ideas to make it more so there would be different people. So it doesn't become like someone who has it for like 100 years. But so I like the how the start I marked here. I always like almost in every chapter. I think the first paragraph is kind of good to go through because it kind of introduces the whole thing always in a interesting way. It seems to be his theme when he writes this book. And
Yeah.
he says here we have already discussed that ultimately experiences are what game designers create. The experiences can only happen in one place, the human brain. Entertaining the human brain is hard because it's so complex. It is the most complex object in the known universe that I don't know about. But anyway, um, it depends on what you define as an object. Anyway, let's not go into very semantic uh,
From his
discussion.
perspective, we have to remember this is his this
Yeah,
is
yeah,
his experience.
exactly. But like you said, it discussed a lot about, and was it here already? He discusses like magicians. I think it's no, it's in the next place, but he starts discussing. So he has like four different things. He's kind of categorized the whole I guess the player's mind into, which was modeling, focus, imagination, and empathy,
Yeah.
which he thinks is relevant to. There's of course more things, but they are relevant to designing a game. Define what depends on what you define as complex. Exactly. Um, so modeling it kind of starts off with which is kind of modeling reality. I guess is what he means,
Yeah.
and how the brain perceives reality, and how we even have like certain ways of like if you draw a cartoon, you draw it in a certain way because of how we see the world. Like actually, it's in the next page. He says like he uses the um, what's his name, Brown,
Yeah,
Charlie
Charlie Brown.
Brown, and
Yeah.
he has a big head, which is almost half of his body, and then a very small body. But if you did, he argues that if you put the feet to be half of the body and then the head just be otherwise proportionate, it would look weird. And that's because we kind of have so much memory in seeing faces, and faces are so important to us when we communicate with others. And that's kind of our reality. But this chapter starts off with showing these kind of visual illusions, with to show that how little we are actually in control of what we perceive and how we perceive it. We prepared some images. Should we show them?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, maybe before we
Yep.
actually let's show them and then we can kind of explain
Book club
how we
hi.
understand the science behind it.
Okay, let's do the first one, the one with dots. So now, guys, look at it. It's a bit covering Tasty's face. He's looking at it very, very intently.
I can't see it right now, but I'll just pretend like I'm looking at it. And basically, this is a static image, but if you try to shift your vision and look at other stuff on that image, then it'll look like the white dots turn black. And that is basically Bjorn using his science visual magic to screw up your brain, and your brain can't really understand all of these patterns, and it kind of fills in stuff, and that's sort of what this chapter is really about, like part of the chapter anyway. It's like your brain sees things and it doesn't always know how to handle this stuff, and that's when things like this happen.
Like if we zoom
um,
in, just to
should we do
prove.
a warning like on the next picture in case anyone has um what's it called, epilepsy?
Yeah, we can. I want to zoom in on this picture to just show that these dots are actually white in the center. So if you zoom in a lot, the illusion disappears.
Yeah.
Which it kind of still is there, but it is not as apparent. So it's not something you can do anything about. And this also kind of ties into something I talk a lot about in the stream, which is Gestalt rules. So the
Oh yeah.
Gestalt is a German word, and it was a German professor, I think, who kind of categorized how we group things, how we see things. Why, for example, when you look at this camera, that I'm here, not part of the background. Like we have built in how the information goes from your eyes into certain parts of your brain, and that even you're not consciously thinking, oh, Björn is in front of the background, it's just automatically. And I like to call this hardware. And this image that you saw here with the dots, I kind of categorize into the hardware malfunctions kind of thing, where our, you know, brain is built in a hardware level in a certain way and doesn't actually come to our conscious mind. It's no way I can tell the brain that don't blink those black dots at me.
Yeah, the Pink Freudian says your brain tries to finish groupings and patterns for you, even in the absence of complete information.
Exactly. And that's what Gestalt kind of talks about. It has a lot of different things. And I think any type of designer, especially in UI and those, need to know these. But
Yeah,
in a more complex state, also game designers, because I mean, if you're not a game designer in the point of view of like UI design, then they're a bit more complex, the rules, than the Gestalt, but they still help.
yeah.
Should we show the other one? Or show, go ahead.
The positive thing about the Gestalt rules is that they basically translate image language to normal person voice language, and it gives you some hard rules that you can use, because the Gestalt rules are things like um, if three things are next to each other and one thing is not next to these things, then you will psychologically perceive the three things as part of a group, whereas the one thing does not belong to the group because it's not near them. And reading through these rules can help a lot with how you can teach a player things without using words. So I think it can be very, very useful for things like tutorials or just generally keeping the flow, which we'll also be talking more about in this chapter. How you can make your player stay in like the zone of flow.
Yeah. So we had another illusion just to show. So again, epilepsy warning. It's not gonna necessarily blink or anything, but it might not be good for if you have. So we'll tell you when it's safe. So look away. So you probably all see kind of a weird thing when you look into that. It's kind of moving and shifting and no, it's it can
Yeah,
cause nausea. I'm not gonna show it for too long. Just to show again, like that's your brain going for it. Nothing is moving in there. It's just a static image.
yeah, exactly. It's a static image, but your brain, like, you, you're constantly trying to focus on different things, and it looks like stuff is moving at like the edge of your vision almost. It's like blah, 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 blah,
Yeah. Who turned intro to?
blah. Yeah, baby.
Yeah, baby, yeah.
It's the Austin Powers intro.
So then he discusses a lot about like how stage magicians all like use a lot of the same thing. So basically, they do a thing, they trick your brain, and then it looks like magic. Um,
Mm.
and I actually had a course in university because um, I studied game design, and we had a real magician come in and teach us, and it was super interesting because seeing somebody like, and he wasn't showing the tricks necessarily, but he was showing how your mind works. And he was like, for example, one thing he did, he just threw a, I think it was like just a marble at the, a table, and your brain instantly goes that it would bounce and then fall off the table. So everybody looked and like it would bounce and fall off the table, but then it didn't. So he actually kept it in his hand. But he just knew exactly how to manipulate your, um, how you see things. That your brain just instantly goes like, oh, there it goes, but then it didn't go anywhere. So just like how you trick dogs,
So
but he was just somehow, I don't know what the trick was actually.
wait, so it looked like you guys were seeing a marble bounce on the table, or
Yeah, it looked like it would bounce on the table and then drop off, but in reality, it didn't. It was very weird.
oh,
So that was one of the. But there's other ones. If you ever seen a close-up magician, that's what it feels like. You just think you see things and you don't. So
yeah,
the reason how he showed it was to kind of show how actually easy we are to trick if you know what to do. And it's sad that magicians kind of don't share their tricks because I think they have a lot of insight into uh, cognition and how the brain works and how you can trick it. And I think it would be super useful for a game designer because there would be probably a lot of things we could do which are kind of could create interesting experiences. Let's say it like
Yeah.
that. I don't know. Have you had any kind of encounters with magicians yourself, Tasty?
I used to love watching magicians when I was a kid. Um, and I think at some point I realized that magicians are tricksters. You know, it's not like they do magic. It's magic because I don't know how they're doing it. And that's kind of when it switched from me enjoying looking at magicians because they were in a form entertaining, and it switched over to a phase where I was like, I watch magicians because I want to see if I can figure out how they're doing it. Um, it's like 9 out of 10 times you can't figure out how they're doing it, but occasionally you can. Like when you see some of those kind of more practical type magicians, like the ones that are sitting and hovering in the air or something, and you just know that maybe there's a mat under that carpet and they're really cheating and blah blah blah. I once heard a saying. I don't know what it's like in English, but roughly translated, it would be like science looks like sorcery to the ignorant person. So basically, like it seems magical because we don't know how it's done, which is kind of like playing tic-tac-toe. It's like, oh, that's an awesome game until you figure out that it's not an awesome game, really. It's
Hmm.
just a game about taking your turn, and
Oh,
that's about it.
the Pink Freudian has a good comment here. Neuroscientists understand the biology and chemistry of the brain. Neuropsychologists understand how the science affects our behavior. Game design falling more into the latter field of expertise. Yeah, and exactly. And I also think like a lot of the things we know, like I also think magicians, they might have studied my neuropsychology, but in the end, they kind of fall into just they know how to apply it. They not necessarily know how or why it works in your brain that way. Whereas I'm very sure that people who study it on a neurological level or like psychological level have a much deeper understanding or trying to understand what is actually happening up here. Whereas the game designers, we just need very crude understanding. Like we just need to know kind of in general a bit helps, and then everything else is more like the how to say like the art or the skill of manipulating the brain uh, through
Yeah,
experiences.
yeah, and also I think like there's you need to make a huge distinction between a scientist and a game designer, because science is very much about replicating something. You have a certain understanding of something, and then you know how to get a specific effect from doing a specific thing. You experiment and you fail a lot as a scientist. Experiment, 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 and then you find the right thing, and then you can replicate it. That's how I understand science. But then as a game developer, you can do all the right things in the book, and then your game still might not work out the way that it was supposed to work out, even though you did the right things by the numbers. Um, so I don't quite feel that game development is a science just yet. And
No, but I do think we're moving that way because we
yeah,
do the scientists do experiments and they try to qualitatively and quantitatively prove that something is like this. That's not our job as game design. We don't care about is it proof or not. We just care about what is the experience. So we just care
exactly.
that it's fun, for
Yep.
example. But where I think though, which is interesting because you brought it up, is that we're kind of moving in towards kind of doing mini experiments, which is called prototypes.
Manly Cup.
I have a more. I don't have my Moomin cup today, which is also my manly cup. This is my just average. So what I was gonna say is just like what was I saying? Who am I? I lost my thought.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. So yeah, iteration and prototypes. So those are mini experiments, and that's why it's so important to test with players, because once you iterate, they kind of prove that your game is fun, right? So you could treat it as a science experiment, and the goal is saying like, this is my this is what I'm testing. So I'm testing, do people understand the menus? I just create a prototype for that, and then you give it to players. Oh, they understand, and you have an outcome. But we don't really care about the scientific outcome of it, but we do care about it being, um, age is getting to you. Yeah, exactly. Being 12 is hard. Um,
Yeah, did you know Bjorn is actually older than me?
yeah, you're 10.
I'm 14, thank you very much.
14! Then you're older. Um,
Yeah,
Mental age, I mean. But yeah, so those are kind of mini experiments, right? Because that's kind of the idea of testing, because otherwise there's no way of knowing, is a game fun? Like if I work inside of a black box and I just build my own world, and I might think it's fun because I built this kind of idea that it's fun, and then I give it to players and they're like, this is crap.
hi Dan.
Hello, Dad. Um, so yeah, so I think actually like I don't think you should treat it as science. It's not science, but you should what? You should treat it as but you should think kind of scientifically. Like that's the idea of iteration, right? I don't know. Do you
Yeah.
disagree or agree or
No, I
don't
agree with
care?
you. I just think, based on my experience, that there are a lot of game developers out there, game designers, who don't really look at it that way. And I think that there are a lot of people who kind of, as soon as you mention the S word, the science, it's like they don't want it to be a part of their game design world. It's like, no, science doesn't belong here because game development is about fun. And, it's like, it's not all about fun. It's also a business, and money is at stake. Using science can make you probably reach results better, faster.
Yeah.
Yeah, as Pink Freudian says, the word science is unfortunately associated with no fun.
Yeah. But yeah, exactly. Uh what are your thoughts on Cuphead? It's an awesome game. Um it's doing really well. I don't know if we're gonna go in deeper into that. It has a great aesthetic, and we love it. Probably. I haven't played it yet, so I can't say for sure.
I haven't played it. I could tell by looking at it that it's not a game for me. Um, it looks amazing. It just, I feel that it has different types of levels that don't appeal to me, like switching from 2D platformer to shoot 'em up side scroller thing. It's not for me.
Yeah, yeah. It would be interesting. We should do. It would be interesting to do an analysis stream about Cuphead because it's such a big hit, especially in the indie
Yeah.
scene. Actually, Ryan Clark. So if you guys are not following him, he did an analysis of Cuphead, and he knows what he talks about. So I would go check him out. It's Ryan underscore Clark. I don't know if lost this here, but so there
I'm
was a
gonna
good
give it a
comment
try.
here
I will.
from Nascent Games. Yeah, I feel some games are replacing fun with overanalysis for the sake of dev needing to explain and justify why something happens. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things. I don't think a game dev should have to justify why something works. Again, this is not science. We're not trying to necessarily uh, create a periodic table of the core elements of fun and how that works. It can help, and you can do that as a game designer, but it's not necessarily the intention. But I do think that that's why I like, again, prototyping and doing it very often, because again, it's not about, you still don't understand why it works, but it's kind of a practical application of it. So you just know it does work. So you know your game is fun because you gave it to 10 players and within your target audience, and they all loved it. They all like played it for hours or whatever. You might not be able to play for hours, but you understand
Yeah.
my example. Um COD. I think it comes down to your target market. When we're talking about games that need to sell and reach the most amount of people, then I think it's sensible to look at psychology behind the selling and player base. I do think this type of thing helps even if you're, not like even if you're just doing it for fun and hobby, because it depends on what type of developer you are or designer. Uh, but for me at least, it helps. Not saying that I would sit here with this book open, being like, okay, let me design the attack of the thing. Let me see which scientific formulae from this book can pull out. No, it's more about gaining perspective, and when you see something that your intuition tells it's a bit wrong, you might have more deeper insight why it is wrong.
If in doubt, add more unicorns.
And
I agree with nascent games.
actually, I'm very surprised that's not the first thing that this book says. It should be the only
Yeah,
one,
I mean,
seemingly.
I think unicorns and sparkles, those are really really important parts of modern game development, as well as zombies, pandas, and pugs.
Pugs. Pugs who need hugs.
Yeah. Hang on a
Very
sec. I need
that.
to open a window because it's getting hot in here. All this talk of
This
unicorns.
is a steamy discussion, guys. Chapter one. Did you add unicorns? I replace unit with dinosaurs in my game. Yeah, dinosaurs work as a good replacement for if you run out of unicorns. They for sure work, but they're a bit different. They're more roary instead of pointy. So the next, should we go move forward? So the next um, subheading. What would we call this? It's not a chapter. It's a sub chapter. What is it? What is it in English? A the next section
Yeah,
talks
I
about
guess it's the
focus.
next tool. Like we've gone over modeling, and then it switches to focus,
Yeah. So
and
focus.
that's
Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah. I was just gonna say that's when it gets to that point about the flow channel and flow, which is I think it's a concept developed by a guy named Mihai Csikszentmihalyi or something like that. Um,
Oh yeah.
there's some videos on YouTube as well about it, which I had to watch because I felt the book was. I felt it was a little bit heavy on that part about how I don't know if you have a picture of it, like the flow channel where it kind of has an X and Y, and
Oh, by the
on the
way,
X axis you have
just for the people who are new, we're by the way going through the Art of Game Design by Jesse Shell. Jesse Shell, a book of
yes.
lenses, and here's the picture. And you can continue talking. Sorry.
I'm just gonna do the exclamation mark book club.
So I don't know if you guys can see, but it's like the anxiety. It says anxiety there. It says, I can't even read that. What does it say?
No, but you
Boredom,
basically
and then it's
have
challenge
the
and
X and Y.
skill. So this is skill axis, and this is challenge axis. So this is very
Yeah,
common.
so
You see it everywhere.
yeah, because this concept of the flow that applies to everyday life as well. Like if you're working at a job or something, then you kind of want to make sure that your skill level kind of matches the challenge level of the task that you're currently doing.
Yeah.
And that's what this chart basically shows. And then his premise is that you don't want to get a challenge that's too high for your current skill level. If that happens, then you enter the anxiety stage. You know, you'll get anxiety and you'll be annoyed because you're it's too hard. The game or whatever you're doing right now, the task is too hard. And on the other hand, if your skill is too high and the thing that you're doing is not challenging enough, then you go on the x-axis and things become boring for you. And then in one of the videos I saw, they don't talk as much about it here in the book, but if you do stuff that's too low and there's no challenge in it as well, so like if you're hanging back to the far left, like near zero on both skill and challenge, then you kind of build apathy. You know, you kind of just don't like the thing that you're doing, and With games, that will mean that people will quit. Um, and the book talks about how to try to look at testers and see, are they in the flow. I mean, I didn't used to call it the flow, but back when I played the NES, I would call it the Tetris trance,
Yeah,
which is not entirely the same, but it kind of is the same.
maybe we should kind of explain that. So he, in the beginning of the section, talks about the flow state, which is kind of, everybody probably had it at some point in their life. Maybe reading a book or watching a movie where you're kind of in a trance. You're just so focused on something. You don't. It doesn't necessarily have to do with challenge necessarily. Like you could be in a flow just reading stuff, but it's when you're really into something and you're kind of you're you're like someone could be talking next to you. You can't even hear them. Um,
Yeah.
and then he has these four things that he states that you need to reach this trance stage, which is clear goals. You need to know what your goal is. So if you're reading a book, of course, knowing more of the story is your goal. Or if it's playing a game, um, you need to know what to do so you're not confused. Then no distractions. There shouldn't be anything else that's kind of distracting you. So if your mom's shouting to come down and eat dinner, it's gonna distract you and pull you out of the flow state. Then
Yeah. No
direct
focus, no goal, no
exactly.
flow.
And then direct feedback, which is kind of like the more direct. Oh, I can hear myself a bit
Oh,
suddenly.
sorry.
Uh, let's wait a moment. I think it's better now.
Better?
I think. No, I can still hear myself.
I don't know if it's because I haven't talked or something. I didn't do anything different with my audio.
Weird. It's really loud now. Weird. Because it was nothing before. Maybe
You
it's
know what? Let me go into the
detecting.
settings and turn off the auto thing, and then maybe that will be better. Because right now it's set to automatically determine input settings. Hang on.
Okay. I'll continue talking if that's okay. So direct feedback meaning that um, the longer you have to wait for something to happen, the more likely you're to pull out from the direct feedback, the flow state. So, for example, if you lag could be one thing, but it's more like even turn based could pull you out. But then again, what you do there is planning, and that happens directly. Um, so it's when feedback is immediate, we can easily stay focused, is what he says here. And then continuously challenging, which is then goes into the whole um, the flow chart, the challenge versus skill chart, where human beings love a challenge, but it must be a challenge we think we can achieve. If we start to think we can't achieve it, we will feel frustrated, and our mind starts seeking an activity more likely to be rewarding. We
Retest.
can't. Now your mouth moves, but no sound.
Oh,
Now we can
darn
hear you.
it. Yeah, I think it needs to be on auto then, because for some reason, me talking, like, that's almost the same as the mic catch. I think maybe if I place something behind the mic cover so that it doesn't catch.
Maybe. I don't know. It was weird. It was good in the beginning of the stream. I just noticed it because it's sometimes hard to talk when I hear myself with a delay. I just don't know what word I'm even saying.
Yeah, yeah, I
So
totally get that. Let me see if this works.
that's actually a thing you could do is like try to sometimes read a book and then play out your own voice, but at a slight delay, and you will notice that it's almost impossible to read. It's like your word starts to slur and you go like, oh, it's your brain goes on the fritz.
I really don't understand why it's doing that. That's really annoying. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know either. It's better
It like
now.
it triggered. Yeah, could I turned your volume down really, really low.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll
headphones
have
would make
to
it easy.
get some. It can be fixed, but yeah, I'll find some headphones. Be right back.
Okay. So yeah, I think this chart and one good point. I don't know if you can hear me still, Tasty. I don't, but maybe you can. But so the flow chart, why one is wiggly here and one is straight. So one is a straight line and one is a wiggly line. So the reason is that he says that trying to achieve this kind of even flow it has been shown to be worse than trying to kind of, you know, oh, you got a new weapon, now you're more powerful, which makes it a bit easier. And then it, slowly grows up to being harder again, and then you get a new weapon that again makes it easier, and then you level up. So this kind of staircase or this kind of wobbly flow is better because you kind of get a reward and you feel powerful, and then it kind of slowly gets more difficult. Has been shown to be a better flow than just it's constantly getting just more challenging in a linear sense.
You're not hearing yourself anymore, are you?
No. Can you hear me?
Good. Yes, I hear you fine.
Good. So I just explained the whole wiggly line versus straight line.
Yeah, I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't. Sorry.
So
I was like.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just thought my headphones freaked out for a second. These are like a million years old. I haven't used these in, I don't know, a million years probably.
Yeah, I always use a headphone. I don't know why. I don't always need it, but I'm kind of used to it.
Yeah, I'll get used to it. I just don't like having.
Just do what I do. Like I don't keep both ears on. I just keep one. That way I can.
It's not so bad. I mean, it's not like these aren't actually muffling the sound or anything because they are super light. I need lightweight ear thingies, so it doesn't feel muffled at all. I think, I don't know. Am I screaming like at the top of my lungs right now?
No, I think it's okay.
Good. In that case, it's not muffling my voice. Because sometimes like people have headphones on and they're like, "Hello, can you hear me?"
Yeah, exactly.
Just like yelling.
You're saying difficult in the game cycles, but in general trend towards more difficult as the game progresses. Kind of, but also that you kind of get these lulls where it suddenly gets a bit easier because, for example, you got a more powerful weapon and it actually drops the difficulty, even if the enemy difficulty is the same because you're more powerful. Like, for example, it takes 3 hits now to kill an enemy, and there's always 2 enemies coming at me. And then I get a weapon that makes it that I can kill them with 2 hits, so 1 hit less, which makes it easier. But then suddenly there's 3 enemies, and then it becomes harder again. And then I get one that can kill them in 1 hit, and then it becomes easy again, and blah blah blah. These are just stupid examples, but so it's kind of like going like this. So it's a bit with rewarding the player. So it's kind of rewarding it by making it a bit easier suddenly because you got a more powerful thing. Which, like, this is just an example. There's other ways of doing it.
Yeah, I mean they've been doing it for like 30 years in shooter games and stuff. Like if you remember playing shoot 'em ups with the spaceships,
Yeah,
you'd usually have this sort of cycle where you start the game, you're crap, enemies are crap, you shoot them, you get a power up, and then maybe there's a boss or something, things are a little bit easier. Then you beat the boss, you get some sort of power up, and the enemies are easy again after the boss. And then it kind of ramps up to the boss, and it goes down to easy again after the boss, and it kind of ramps up again, and that gives it that sort of kind of like interval training when people are running. You're kind of focused, slacking, and it kind of.
Yep. Hey,
sorry. I just thought maybe my mic didn't work.
No, it works. I was just listening. Hey, Honest Dan, thank you for the host. You're awesome, dude. You guys who are not following Dan already, go follow him. And also, hey, Nick Mao, thanks like for the follow.
Something like this.
There you go. We didn't just call you losers, by the way. That was Honest Dan's logo.
Exactly.
So that brings us to the first lens. So the lens of flow. It's lens number 21 for me, and lens something lower for, what is it on your book? The lens of flow.
The lens of flow is lens number 18. So, to use this lens, consider what is holding your player's focus. Ask yourself these questions. Does my game have clear goals? If not, how can I fix that? Are the goals of the player the same goals I intended? Are there parts of the game that distract players to the point they forget their goal? Goal. I like gold. If so, can these distractions be reduced or tied into the game goals? Does my game provide a steady stream of not too easy, not too hard challenges? taking into account the fact that the player's skills may be gradually improving. And the last one is, are the player's skills improving at the rate I'd hoped? If not, how can I change that? That was the lens of flow.
Yeah. So I have the second edition, and Tasty has the first edition. So there's two editions, and I think they promised the third edition for next year. If you don't have
Yeah,
the book, there's a link below. You can buy it, and you can follow along the stream. But we try to cover the like most of the things in the book, so you can also just watch the wads.
yeah. And through one of our viewers, we were told that he is totally okay with us reading this much from the book. The author, that is.
So there's always a promise in another upcoming reward. Yeah, so the cycle, there's different ways, but it's kind of like you don't want it to be super intense all the time. It's also tiring. So I think that's what that whole like up and down flow. So you kind of within a certain spectrum that goes like this growing, you kind of want it to you have more intense moments, less intense moments, but the less intense moments can't be so long that you get bored. And that's the thing to then kind of always keep in mind. And there's
Yeah,
different ways. Different games do this differently. And maybe this is actually a really good thing that I learned to do is monitor this while I'm playing and think, what are they doing to maintain the challenge rate or give me pauses? Because instantly I get a pause. This is what I think about. Oh, look, I think they intentionally gave me a pause. What did they do? Oh, it's actually after a boss, or like Tasty said, or something else. So keep this in mind when you're analyzing a game. It's gonna ruin your other, like if your gameplay, if you're just playing for fun. But if you're playing with the game design in mind, keep this in mind. I find it super useful because you find a lot of hidden tricks when you kind of internally clock the challenge rate. When do you feel frustrated? Why do you feel frustrated? Oh, it's because it's too hard, or I don't know where to go, or and then you can answer, oh, I don't know where to go. Is it because they actually missed some kind of signage or like some UX that they're not telling me, or is it something else?
yeah. But I mean, even if you are just playing the game, you can still kind of tap into when you're getting these emotions. Like you mentioned, after a boss, you kind of get this sort of curiosity or feeling of anticipation because you're like, okay, so now it's getting easy again. I wonder what's going to happen next time. Because you kind of start to sense a pattern and you'll be like, okay, I wonder what's going to happen with the next boss. This one was hard in this and that way. I wonder how the next one's going to be. So it has this sort of cycle of tense and release, and
Yeah.
that seems to work really, really well with humans. We like that thing where there's not too much relaxation because otherwise it's going to get boring, and there's not too much excitement because then we'll kind of wear out. Like it's kind of like if you're watching a horror movie. If the horror movie has like 1 hour and a half of constant jump scares, like every 3 minutes you just get like bam, 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 then you wear out. It's just not going to be as interesting anymore.
Yeah.
So movies and storytelling kind of follows the same pattern, but
I,
not exactly.
I think it's because this is my own theory. It's because humans like contrast, and that's how we notice. We notice when things change. We don't notice it when it's constant. So if I may draw a picture and I have constant contrast, it's just going to be a flat image. So it's kind of, there's nothing you can see because it's all the same. Well, if it has color, you could argue. But in general, and the same thing, you notice when challenge rate goes up or when it goes down. Um, so, like Tasty said, if it's constant, you wear out, you get tired. Um, you might get super frustrated. And
And rage quit.
yeah, and even if it's kind of rewarding, at some point, it doesn't feel rewarding anymore because you're just getting the reward all the time. Like, it's a bit like if you just drink water with sugar in it, if you drink it long enough, you're gonna stop tasting the sugar in it. Um, like they've tested this where it kind of feels less sugary once you drink a lot, like constantly. So it's the same thing. Like, but if you lower and heighten this amount of sugar, you notice much more. Like, oh, it's super sweet now. Oh, it's not sweet at all. So, and of course, adrenaline receptors. You need also a break. That's a really good point. It's kind of built in. I think we as humans, and don't. This is not scientific, guys. This has not been tested or anything. But I think that we as humans are kind of many of our things that from like adrenaline to everything is kind of built to kind of have variance. And hey, PD Codes, welcome to the company Game Devs. Cheers for the follow, dude. But that's just my own theory. But it from just or like from what I've subjectively experienced. So the next thing, should we just move on to empathy?
Yeah, or maybe just like right before that.
Yep.
This lens of flow is like you can kind of use that on yourself as well. It also says that in the book. So like, don't just ask these questions about your players. Consider yourself a player as well. How does it work for yourself as well? Because sometimes you kind of look at your testers as a separate entity, which they are, of course. Your players are not you, but you should be a player too in most regards when it comes to making a game.
Yeah, I think also even here it says like you can even think about it and practice this kind of flow thinking um, in your design process. So when you're most in flow when you design something, and when you're out of flow, and what affects that. I don't know if he
Yeah.
said that, but that's his last point in this chapter, I think.
So empathy.
Yep, empathy. So as you know, guys, we have empathy, meaning that you know when we meet other people, if they're sad, we feel kind of sad, and if they're super happy, then you're gonna feel more happy and stuff like that. Um, and that's why kind of that's another thing you can use, because I find like I actually think that I'm not happy at all watching Tasty now. I just
Oh
feel
crap!
stoned.
I was just about to say, I smile, you smile.
Yeah, he actually talks about where they did a test where there was two groups of actors, one that tried to portray and keep a like certain like I'm happy man, like this, and then the other group was supposed to just look into the eyes of the happy people and not do anything, just look at them and walk around. So they all walked around on a stage, and they noticed that when you looked in the eye with someone who was happy, like, and you just try to be, they kind of started smiling. Or if you looked at the sad person, you kind of felt the actors, without telling them anything, they kind of suddenly started, looking sad too. So you kind of mimic people around you. Something also in workplace, why workplace mood so much affects the workers.
Yeah.
And yeah, sure.
Yeah, I work with kids, so I see it a lot. The way that kids mirror each other, and with that specific age group, you kind of need to have learned how to decode facial expressions. A lot of people have homeschooling or have home this and that. So, well, not homeschooling as much in Denmark, but um, there's a lot of cases where kids have not been to kindergarten as much as they should, and they haven't really learned how to interpret a happy person's face or a sad person's face. And to some extent, you'll also see children who have autism. They don't quite understand like, how does a happy person look or how does a sad person look. Um, and this is something that we also use in games, like, does the main character look sad when he gets hit? That's one way of telling the player that, you might not want to get hit because main character hurts now.
Yeah.
And that triggers our empathy.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it's empathy necessarily, but also like if you look at Cuphead, I think a lot of the bosses look kind of maniac, like they're like super happy in a maniac way. I wonder how that affects the player, because they're all like they were in the cartoons. But then again, the
Yeah.
the main heroes are kind of sad. I don't know if they look very happy. I think they look very like they're like on their task. They're just like dredging through. I don't remember.
Yeah, but I'm thinking more from like,
Yeah, this
um,
is not the same point, no, but it was just
yeah,
like the
since
same.
this is like an action game and things are progressing really fast. So I don't think that you're really emphasizing in the same way with characters like these. But if you look at a game like Ori and the Blind Forest, there's a lot of focus on the main character. There's focus on the music, and there's focus on body language and expressions of these characters. I haven't played the game, but I've seen a lot of people play through it. Um, I have to stop because I get things in my eyes every time I watch people play that game. It's so sad. But like, there's a big character in that game that I think dies, and when that happens, you emphasize with the main character because it looks sad that someone died. Um, and it's a super powerful tool, and they use relatively simple tools of achieving that effect in the player for the player.
Yeah.
Um,
Actually, one good example that's been used a lot is Bioshock, where they had the little girls with their daddies, where they called big daddies or something, and then you can
yeah,
harvest the girls and etc. and that thing. And I think even the big daddy, he kind of lumbers, he's kind of sad, and I think the whole how they built that was it was actually talking or trying to talk about moral issues and stuff like that. Is it actually okay to harvest them? Blah blah blah. So. I think there they did a lot good job on kind of evoking emotion, like sympathy for. Because in other games you have similar situations, but you don't feel bad. You're just like, more power for me, yip, whip de doo da. But that game kind of built on that whole premise.
yeah. But and I think again the whole case of empathy also comes down to culture for the player. Lady Graf, for instance, there are certain types of things that she won't do when she plays World of Warcraft. Like, she's not going to slaughter critters, which are tiny little animals that don't do anything. She doesn't kill those. Um, I would, maybe, if it helped me move forward. Like, if I have a charge attack and I need to move forward, I'll target a critter and charge at it and beat it to a pulp just to earn 3 seconds of movement speed or something like that. So again, it kind of depends. Like, what kind of player are you? Because I wouldn't say I'm not an empathic person. I mean, I work with kids and I care very much about humans around me, but I don't really emphasize with digital stuff on screen. I emphasize with human beings in films, but for some reason, I'm not exactly the same in games unless it's Ori and the Blind Forest. And I think it has more to do with the music than the actual characters.
Yeah, music actually brings out a lot of emotion. I don't know. He might talk about that in this book later on. Um, but also, I think also using it like if you have like a main boss and you hit him and he's kind of like oh like he looks very like how to say like sad and he doesn't look that aggressive. You actually might stop attacking him, and then that
Mm.
might then go to a cutscene that you're actually not supposed to fight him or something like that. Which again, you could use these cues. So if he looks just normal and aggressive, you might not think about doing that. So it's all about kind of the intention of what you want to do. You can use emotion and empathy to guide the player. And you could even have, I think there's, like if you look at, what is that game's name now? Which is a story based space game. Come on, with a lot of alternative endings. Or not a lot, but
Is it the BioWare one? Mass
yeah,
Effect?
Mass Effect, yeah. So I think there also you either have empathy and you choose a certain route or you don't, which is interesting. Um, there's a couple good comments here, or many good comments, but some that we should read out loud. Well, adrenaline is stress, psychologically speaking. It's extreme stress designed for short-term bursts, meant for fight or flight situation. Yeah, actually, a lot of anxiety syndrome comes when you feel the fight or flight um, your body goes into fight or flight even if there is no real danger or anything in a
Mm.
different way without a good reason. It overreacts. That's why people have anxiety attacks. I remember having a cool experiment back in school. Two different students were ordered out of the room and to prepare to talk about their daily journey to school. Other students were told to look and listen to the first student closely and completely ignore the second student's speech. And the second student has had multiple small pauses and couldn't finish the talk, showing the effect of the audience had. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's called the tough crowd syndrome.
Yeah, you can actually see that also a lot in the streamers. If
Yep, I was
depending
just
on
about to say.
like when you see if you have a lot of chat interaction, good comments, you see the streamer's more engaged. He will play around more and do things. And then if the chat is quiet, he'll be more like,
Yep. And you'll know it because it's like you'll hear or see the streamer, and the streamer is going to be all like, "So, guys, what are you up to today?"
"Why are
And
you imitating me, dude?"
sorry, I wasn't,
And
or maybe I was.
yeah, you're pulling out your inner Björn with the squirrel voice.
No,
I
I'm just like the pizza guy from Simpsons or something. Before it scrolls off, Spectrum 39 blah 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 says, well, can you teach empathy through an avatar? And I really want to answer that before it gets scrolled away. I know that they have projects where they have like a little robot, and instead of a head, it has an iPad, and on that iPad, there are different facial expressions, and they use that in the like with kids to teach them expressions. But I would also say that cartoons
oh,
have,
imagine if that robot went wild and then you create the next like Joker or something. It's just like sad,
no,
mortally
well,
wounded.
I guess it could get hacked and all that, but
That
yeah,
would be
it's
terrifying.
pretty, it's like, it just has like a facial expression, and it's very simple. It's like two dots and then a smiley face, and it's like, hello, I am feeling happy now. How
Hello,
are you feeling
I
today?
want to murder my parents.
Yeah, something like that.
They get
I
all to
sense fear in your voice. You should not turn your back to me.
start to sound like Portal.
I know, or I tried.
Yeah.
But yeah, cartoons are actually one of the ways that you also teach kids about these expressions, facial expressions and such, and they're very exaggerated, and that's why sometimes when you tell kids to smile, they'll be like, it's so exaggerated because that's what they that's how they get it, they'll be all like super happy,
Yeah.
or they'll be like, what's his name, the tall guy in Big Bang Theory.
Well, it's culturally bound. Like if you go to Asia, there's a lot of countries where when you're happy, you're not taught to smile, and if you met, it's changing now because of media a lot. Like, but if you like in the '90s would go to China or Japan, they would smile like this. Hello, I'm so happy right now. It's like they're trying to imitate what they've seen, but because they weren't taught when they were younger, they didn't know how to do it. That's the explanation I've heard. But they can
That's like
now
Terminator
smile.
smiling.
But I think it's something cultural. They weren't taught to smile or something like in the same way we do here.
Yeah,
So I wonder even if smiling is it taught culturally or is it taught like is it inherent? That's very interesting. Like someone else said something similar in chat.
that's a good question. I mean, in the animal world, you don't really smile with your mouth. It's like if you were a dog and you did like this, it's like
But then again, they like he
that
says
would,
here, he has the dog as example, like that they
yeah, but
were
that's their eyes.
yeah, that's their eyes, of course. But they also do grin with their mouths sometimes. Some look like they're smiling. But I don't know. I think it might not be. I don't know if it's intentional or not, or is it just. I don't know. It's hard to say. I'm not an expert. There's probably people who are. I think Pink Freudian seems to know a lot about this, so I think maybe you know more. Interesting, because laughter is actually a function of one of the most primal parts of your brain, but you're right, smiling is an expression of happiness, is culture. Yeah. The expression, I mean, they still feel happiness. They just don't
Yeah,
show it the same way. They show it by punching you in the face. Oh, you're so happy today. No, I was kidding. Don't do that, guys. Um, It's also a good strategy to go for tank characters, healer characters, which is one of the prone to empathy without the avatar. Or did you choose to play those characters because one player is more empathic? I don't know. I actually played. I didn't always play. I played both all classes, but I used to play a lot of healing classes, and maybe empathy some points were the part. But I find also it highly interesting the strategy behind healing because actually um, it's just you have to play a different game than everybody else. You're playing the game of keeping everybody alive, and that's your goal. And then everybody else is damage, kill, defeat the boss, and your main goal is keep everybody alive. And once you start thinking in that lines, it actually becomes interesting and good games. Um, like I think World of Warcraft did a really good job on that. I don't know how Tasty feels about that, but because he's played much more. But I think healer, it was very strategical. You would need timing. You need to think about your mana consumption and stuff like that. Was interesting. Then there is games where healing is just boring, and then someone just has to do it, I guess. But Tasty says no comments.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I'm actually more reacting to what Spectrum says about, did they pick a healer because they are more empathic? I think some people do that. But honestly, have you seen the diva ego of tanks and healers? I can't say for a fact that the majority of people who pick that class are like that, but so many people who pick healers or tanks in MMOs, they do it because they love the attention. They love being that one person in the group that the entire group needs. That's why they do it. I've played so many MMOs. I picked healer because I want to be special. I mean, that's why I do it. I don't pick a healer because I want to help people as such.
you don't.
I
You don't
mostly
even
pick
heal. You're just smoking a cigar.
Yeah,
Deal
like
with yourself.
I mostly pick a healer because
Don't smoke, kids.
if I do it, then at least the healer is going to be good.
Yeah.
At least
Then
I'm
it's
not going to
done
be
right, not like the other
exactly.
guy
It's
who
like I'm
sucks.
not going to be grouped up with some schmuck who joins the group and is like, "Hi guys, I picked healer because my older brother told me it would be awesome. He says that if I just press this button every 3 seconds on the tank, then we win."
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends, especially World of Warcraft. We opened a can of worms, but in World of Warcraft, it depends on what stage you are. In Endgame, it definitely is true. Uh, but I mostly related to when it first came out. I hadn't played even Endgame at all, so I don't know. Usually, there were no healers and there were no divas because there were no healers at the beginning. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, of course, I picked it also because there's so few of them, so you got to progress in the game faster. But I don't think I'm trying to think. Would I do it just to? Well, the thing is, I would not necessarily pick it because of I get special treatment or something, but it does help that you always find a group to get instances. That was a huge benefit. So you
I
would
mean,
make life easier.
when I originally started playing MMOs, that was back when you had the Holy Trinity. That was EverQuest for the most part. I played Ultima Online, but in in EverQuest you had extremely long queue times for groups. So my first character was a hybrid. I just picked a character that could do everything. I wasn't at the time aware that picking a crappy character like that would make me unusable for groups later. Um, so
Hanzo.
yeah, no, he's pretty good. But so I played a druid and
Hanzo
basically
man.
was able to solo all the way to max level. And then when I joined groups, people were like, what do you do? Because they were not used to seeing druids in groups, and it was kind of to some extent eliminated in World of Warcraft. They saw a lot of these things that needed to be changed and make everyone feel useful. So druids were a little bit more useful in WoW when that game came out.
Yeah.
Um, but I think also like the way that people pick classes, that's very much based on when in the life cycle of a game do you join. Because if you join a game like World of Warcraft now without knowing anything about it, then you would have a much harder time getting into it because you have these sort of already set players who are like, you need to play in a specific way, you need to do this in a specific way. There's no room for exploration because everything you do is going to be wrong anyway. So, just do it the right way or don't do it at all, ish. And that's a shame with MMOs. Like today, they've become a little bit too streamlined.
Oh, they can't see Kitty.
Oh, yeah, I think she's out of the frame.
No, she's. I can see her, but we cut her off right here.
Oh, okay.
Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, emotions are very important. It's kind of interesting, this whole discussion. There's a good discussion going on in chat also. There's a lot of cultures. So show good behavior by showing hands or back or your back, like handshaking, hugging, bowing, smiling, kissing on a cheek. They all show not violent behavior and good intentions. We show people
Yeah,
we mean no harm when we meet people.
but we would kind of need to learn that that is what it means, like, because the difference between this and that, it's like that's kind of something that I guess we learn based on our culture.
Yeah, but I think humans have enough commonality in culture, at least yet still, that there's certain things that you do know it's aggressive no matter where you come from, because we still kind of come from the same tribe. You still have even
Yeah.
common words across, like for mother and father, you have a lot of same words across the world, even if we are not. They just are things that never changed that much. Some are also modernly taken, but there's some that are actually the same, even if your world's across. And I think the
Yeah, I
same
mean
thing
the
with
the
certain things. Like
wrinkling.
if I do certain movements, you're gonna be like, whoa. And if I, move slowly or look relaxed, you're gonna be relaxed too. Which is more reading maybe the face. But of course, there's sign language. Like, hey, someone might think, oh, I'm gonna punch you when I show a thumbs up. Um, or some
Oh no, he's gonna stick my eye out with the thumb.
or showing the middle finger or something like that. I'm not gonna do that on stream or something. But
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
let's not do that.
how do you know which one is good then? It's basically just a fist and a different finger, and they
Yeah.
need two different things. Yes, those would be, but I don't think you want to go to another culture and be like. Then again, you're smiling and acting very nervously, so maybe I would be nervous. I think there's a lot of the studies were with African tribes. I think they studied this kind of behavior. I remember reading something somewhere, but I can't remember anything because I'm an old man. The MMO I'm building, nobody will be able to be good at everything. I almost thought that she was going to say anything. Anyway, no
No
class
class, no
and
way.
no way to pick
Sorry.
skills. You learn by doing. If you spend your time fighting, that's what will increase. If you spend your time crafting, that's what will increase. Well, it's very Ultima Online, I guess. Well, that has
Yeah,
classes
it's
still,
that
but
by that description, that's Ultima Online.
and then there was what? There's some other games that do
It's
similar.
basically you would categorize that style of MMO as a skill-based MMO.
Yeah,
So that's Eve Online and Ultima Online,
yeah.
and newer ones would be what's it called? The one from Portalarium. Something about Avatar or something.
Mm.
Hang on a second. Let's see. I have it somewhere.
By the
Shroud of
way,
the
no way
Avatar.
are we dissing this kind of system. I
No,
actually
I
love
love
that
it.
type of game. I actually prefer that over class based. The
Yeah,
thing I
I love
personally
that.
usually dislike is that um, in the end, those type of systems anyway are designed that you can take wide enough base that in the end there is no class, or you can have several characters, which makes it moot. So, especially for the non-fighting skills, I really love when I played Ultima Online in the beginning, where I could be like the meat merchant and sell meat or something. I don't know, and then because I had very high skill, um, nobody else could do that, and they could get higher grade stuff from
Nobody
me.
had meat like you did.
Exactly. And that was really interesting. But now it's kind of everything has become where it's kind of like it's probably what you're trying to solve, which is there's kind of this kind of democracy or whatever. Like everything is everybody. Either you have several characters, which breaks it, or stuff like that.
Mm.
I
Oh yeah, there's shards online as well. That's
Yeah.
that's very Ultima Online like. And then Reality O mentions Albion. I'm assuming it's Albion Online. That's a
Albion Online.
skill-based game, but not really, because whatever gear you wear, your active skills are based off of that gear. And so, like, if you're wearing a cloth helmet, then you get specific skills and passives from that. And if you're wearing a sword, then you get specific attack skills based off of that. And then by just using those items, you gain skills, which will allow you to unlock, um, or you gain XP, and that will allow you to unlock higher tiers that allow you to use more better gear. But I found the Albion Online progression to be a little too grindy with not enough reward in it. It's very, very, very far from Ultima Online,
Yeah.
sadly.
So the next, should we just move on to imagination?
Yes.
The last thing in this chapter talks about, at least for me, it's the last thing. I don't know. Is it for you too? Anyway.
For me, it goes imagination, and then motivation, and then judgment.
Okay, good. Then we have the same. He just split them into the motivation and judgment and all that is in another chapter. So he just broke it in the same content into 2 chapters.
Mm.
Okay, so imagination. How to explain what he talks here? Basically, like, well, the example he uses is if you tell a short story, like the main man stole my car yesterday.
Yeah.
Just from hearing that, most people can already start imagining things like, oh, and you kind of fill in gaps that I didn't tell, and that's you using your imagination. So he says here, like, take a look at the mental image that formed and answer these questions. What did the mailman look like? What kind of neighborhood was my car in when he stole it? What color was the car? What time of day did he steal it? How did he steal it? Why did he steal it? Probably answering these questions now, you all came up with different type of thing. But instantly you say something like, oh, the car actually was a miniature car, like a toy car. Your whole image shatters or changes from to even what the answer, like, you might even think like the time of day he's using a toy car is probably daytime, whereas for example maybe the real car was stolen during night in your scenario.
And CPod Games just put another mental image in my head. He says the mailman is a dog delivering bone.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. I mean, that's how our brain works. It's like when people say stuff, we kind of associate and create images in our mind based off of what people tell us and based off of what we need mentally in order to understand what's being told to us. Like, it's not enough to just know that a mailman stole Björn's car. You know, I kind of have to have a mental image of some guy, I don't know, wearing blue clothes, and he kind of looks like Postman Pat or whatever his name is. I don't know, but that's the mental image I instantly get when someone says Postman did something or Mailman did something.
But we actually actively do that. I think it also like it's interesting when going to like things like if I say chocolate ice cream, you probably taste chocolate ice cream now in your mouth, kind of, or something in that direction. And then you might think like,
I don't think I did.
You tasted something else.
I'm disappointed now.
That was
I wanted
bad
chocolate ice cream, but I didn't get any. But I did see a mental image.
Now you crave chocolate
like
ice
a
cream.
Cartoony ice cone.
Imagine
yeah, now I
taste.
crave ice.
Oh, yes. With some mint? No mint. Anyway, there was some other thing.
Ice cream.
Can you do a SpongeBob imitation?
No, I'm too old for SpongeBob. I never watched it.
You're too old.
I am.
To do imitation. Your jaw will break off and fall down. That's what my imagination just filled in there. It's like, not that you didn't watch it, but that you watched it, but if you would do it, you would get like physically hurt because of your tender age.
Yeah, it's like, no, I'm too old to do the impression. I can't do it.
Too old for SpongeBob? Get out! Get out now!
That's probably because you guys were like Okay, so SpongeBob came out in 1999. Yeah,
Well,
in
that's how old
1999,
he
I
is.
had been in the military almost 3 years. It's like, and we joined the military at the age of 18 here in Denmark,
SpongeBob's full of adult humor that only adults
or
would
something
understand.
like that.
Ooh, kitty. Anyway, yeah, a lot of cartoons do that. It's because usually the parents also need to watch it with their kids. Not so much anymore, but they used to at least, so they kind of put adult humor in there that kids won't pick up on.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think DreamWorks really deserves a lot of credit for doing that for mainstream movies. A lot of their early works had these sort of references for older audiences. And yes, I am old, but I know for a fact that Lily Bite is older than me, and I also know now that Nascent Games is 1 year older than me. So I'm young with the youngsters.
Ren and Stimpy, holy crap. Yeah, there's a lot of good. I love, like, I still watch animations.
A
Um,
lot of those cartoons that Nascent Games mentions, like Tiny Toons, Animaniacs, and Ren and Stimpy, a lot of those were they weren't really shown in main, I guess, like in prime time in Denmark because I think they had to be translated, and the translators probably kind of knew that this is not cartoons for kids in a way.
oh, Courage the Cowardly Dog was awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's why I
yeah,
watched RTL because it was same here, but they had them in RTL
yeah.
in German or some
I
other
remember
language.
we had Cartoon Networks when wasn't a kid, but I still watched it. Like Dexter's Lab, that's one of the things that me and Lady Graph have in common. Like within the first week of dating, we were watching Dexter's Lab in bed. Not that that has anything to do with it, but like we would
Too much
just sleep.
detail, dude.
We would sleep late, and we would have the iPad, and we'd watch Dexter's Lab, and we would be like, those sounds that his sister does.
Omelette au fromage. No, du fromage. No,
Yeah.
au fromage is the only thing I remember from Dexter. Oh, Johnny
Omelette
Bravo.
du fromage.
Yeah, and then what is his name? There's one that's missing from this list of awesome. Um,
Johnny
Jack.
Bravo and Ed, and Eddie.
Yeah, Ed, Ed, and Eddie. Jack. What is his name? Jack. Whatever.
Jack Samurai.
Yeah, Samurai Jack. That's what his name.
Samurai Jack. Yeah, I never watched that, but I have heard that it's good.
Yeah, it's a bit different. Well, a lot of those are. This in a different way, bit different. The last thing at least for me, I would like to talk about this. I mean, imagination thing is that I think the whole imagination part is why I think pixel art works so well, and why a lot of times when you play older games, especially when you were like my generation or older, that when you played those older games with pixel art and the things that were very abstract almost, that it
Mm.
felt like those had more imagination and more um, and through that kind of you had more like you were experiencing more, and I think that's because your imagination was filling in so much more, whereas I've now play like Call of Duty or Player Unknown's Battlegrounds or whatever that has realistic graphics, it doesn't leave any, like there's nothing to imagine because it looks exactly what it is. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, but if you go back in the day, there might be some object in the game, and I'll talk to some other people and they're like, yeah, I love when you picked up the banana, and I'm like, no, it was a yellow phone, what are you talking about, banana, that
Yeah.
makes no sense. And it's like, no, and then there's a third opinion about what it is. So I think, and I also think that's why kind of sometimes, even if it's not super low res, that some characters that are pixel art characters have such strong impact in indie games, is because you can imagine the facial expression that they have, instead of having that AAA game where they're trying to mimic the facial expressions badly, which ruin the whole empathy part then. So you kind of
Yeah.
get
And that's a
empathy
whole
through
other talk.
imagination.
Yeah. That's a whole other talk, like about the uncanny valley where um stuff just doesn't look as good. Like we may feel that, a specific game looks freaking awesome, like Dragon Age Inquisition, and we're like, wow, that game looked amazing in 2014. And then when you look at it today, it's like, okay, maybe they had recently developed the metal shader because they seem to be using that a lot. It's like, why are they constantly wearing all these shiny items? And it kind of breaks it a little bit, where that's also where pixel art is more timeless, even though the instant you look at pixel art, you'll be like, meh, this looks like it's really old. But, it still looks better 30 years from now than super realistic stuff is going to look 30 years from now.
Yeah. So
So I think it's also a case of what we're used to seeing. Like, if you look
sure.
at movies, when the first Harry Potter movie came out, we saw that troll that was like, I don't know, 2001 or something, and it was like, wow, it looks amazing. It's there, but if you see it now, you're like, that that doesn't look as good as I remembered it. And it's kind of the same with the games.
Yeah. But I mean, and that's another reason to kind of sometimes doing stylized, like the whole Charlie Brown that the whole chapter started with. That if I would do a comic book style, it probably will. Comic book style will probably exist still in 20 years, maybe 10
Oh
years
yeah,
at least. So uh, people will be like, "Oh, this looks really good," because it's still, that style exists and it looks exactly like that. Um,
yeah,
with So that's again and then in the comic book style also it's abstraction, like it's still an abstraction of facial expressions. It's not the
yeah.
exact, like you can't see the small eyebrow here winking a little bit. It's like, well, you can see that maybe, but like and that way I find that sometimes I, at least as a player, get a stronger flow, which we talked about, or more immersion, because I can imagine things. And then when if there's nothing left for me to imagine, I might get pulled out of a story or something.
And another thing about this, like the simple graphics versus advanced graphics, or um, pictures versus drawings or comics. Um, our brain likes to look at these things that are clearly defined with the lines. Like you look at a pretty drawing and it's fantasy. It doesn't look like a real person, but you connect the dots and it is a real person in your mind in the way that you're looking at it, and that feels satisfying somehow. You're kind of robbed of that satisfaction if you're playing a game where everything looks super realistic. So I think that those games cater to a different aspect of your brain, or like a different part of your brain. So when you're playing these games, it's a lot more about the immersion, whereas when you're playing games with comical or cartoony or abstract slash stylized characters, that's when your brain feels it's being rewarded in a different way because it's kind of deciphering what you're looking at, and it enjoys that in a way,
Yeah,
I
it
think.
depends on what you want to emphasize, I think, in your game. So
Mm,
and I think that's what this chapter talks about. Why it's relevant is just like how to use the imagination to your advantage, how to use it to strengthen or weaken. Like sometimes you don't want people to be imagining weird things, and then a more realistic looks better because it's just clear cut. Oh, that's the enemy. Oh, shoot him. That's a gun. I don't have to sit here and guess. But
yeah.
then there's games where you wanna use more abstract forms, or uh, not to keep people guessing what it is. That's not good. You should still know what it is, but to kind of give them, like, if you read a book again. If you're not a person who reads a lot of books, you might not get this. But for people who read a lot of books, you have this whole world. Like when I first read Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, I hadn't seen any animation, the animation version that was early, or the movies or anything. So I could imagine everything that what it looked like, and it was super. Everything looked so great. Like it's all real world CGI. It's super great. And then you see the movie. Luckily for me, it matched quite well. But then there's people who don't match, and then you're kind of pulled out, and you don't like the movie because you read the book, which happens quite a lot of the time.
Oh yeah, Harry
So
Potter.
Harry Potter and on all
Yeah.
these. So it depends. I mean, and I think that's something you need to. it needs to be. Don't just chase after a art style. Also think about these things. How much do you want people to? How much do you want people to be imagining, or and how in what scale?
Yeah, Seedpod Games has an interesting. He says, look at how Team Fortress 2 and Overwatch does it, and then go play Battlefield and cry. Um, and I think that probably says a lot about what Overwatch and Team Fortress 2 did, because I know that when they design their characters, they set out to have really strong silhouettes. It's super important in a shooter game, especially a class-based shooter game. It's really important that you can instantly discern what kind of enemy am I facing, and that's when the silhouettes come in. Like, you will instantly recognize a heavy or a Reinhardt, which are big, strong, chunky characters. You'll recognize them over a thin, skinny spy or something other. Actually, the spy would just disguise himself, but a scout. So the silhouette plays a really important part, and that's also something that you can take with your game development or your game designs. Like, make sure that your characters are easily recognized, unless of course you want to go for that real world, in my opinion, boring battle thing kind of style where, it's hard to tell if you're shooting a medic or some other guy because they kind of all look the same, which is how war works. It just doesn't make for, in my opinion, great gameplay. Some people love it. I don't love them. I mean, it.
Yeah, it depends. I've had both experiences. I'm very I'm a see like how what is that? All I eat everything. Play all kinds of games and I enjoy them. Like Squad, you don't know who's the medic necessarily, except if you use the binocular. So there's ways to find out intelligence about the
Mm.
character, but you have to look at the details, not the silhouette. And that's the
Yeah.
fun in that game. You get a competitive advantage in that game through that. And then all the classes don't have a binocular, so again, blah blah blah. But then there's games where silhouettes without them it would be stupid because it's not built into the mechanics and the gameplay. It just confuses you and doesn't help. Like it's not a intentional mechanic of the game.
Mm.
Should we move on? So that was for me. That was the chapter of the experience is in the player's mind, and in the second edition, this is then split into another chapter, the rest, which is called the player's mind is driven by the player's motivation.
Yeah. In mine, it just continues to motivation.
Okay, let's see how much this differs. But this starts with the needs. So everybody probably knows the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Anybody who doesn't, maybe somebody can Google the pyramid thing. It's usually put into a pyramid and put it in chat a link.
Yeah, but we could just explain it like really fast. It's
Sure.
basically a sort of priority list where most people put it in a pyramid, but basically it's like you have the physiological needs, which are water, shelter, and warmth. These are the most important things, according to him. You can always argue that there are other things that are more important, but that's it. And then after the physiological stuff, you get the safety, which is security, stability, freedom from fear. And then after that, once those needs are covered, then you get to the belonging slash love community type of thing, where you have friends, family, spouse, lovers, um, just one lover, obviously.
It says it's singular in my book. I don't know about you.
I use a pen to add an S to lovers. No. And then after those are filled, you get to self-esteem, which is achievement, mastery, recognition, respect. And then the final one is self-actualization, which is the pursuit of inner talent, creativity, fulfillment. Um, Obviously, if we were to do a more modern version, I would totally listen to side apps, and I would probably put Wi-Fi password or internet in the physiological category, along with water, shelter, and warmth, and
Well,
Wi-Fi.
That's what Pink Freudian just linked.
Oh, they did?
Wrong spot. Yeah, that's a new category underneath everything that says Wi-Fi.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I see it now. Sorry. I thought
You're
Side Apps
wrong.
pulled that one up. Yeah, but it is. It's all wrong. Wi-Fi is ultra important.
Yeah, I mean,
Nascent Games says he's heading out. Have a great day, and thank you for popping by, Nascent Games.
yeah. Thanks for dropping in. You can always watch the VOD if you're interested, and there's a lot of discussion in the previous. This is the 5th episode, if I'm not incorrect. So, a lot of different discussions in every episode. So yeah, so he introduces Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and then he also introduces after that we could as well cover it instantly is the uh, uh, a, a model used or made by Edward Deci and Richard Ryan. I don't know how to say
Oh,
that.
I don't have that in my book.
Oh, you don't.
No.
Interesting. So,
Enlighten me. Enlighten me.
So it says here, as interesting as Maslow's point of view is, more modern psychologists have taken up the new viewpoints on the question of needs. Particularly relevant to games is the work of Edward Deci and Richard Ryan. And this is much more simple. It's not a pyramid at all. It just has 3 points. Competence. I need to feel good at something. The second one's autonomy. I need freedom to do things my own way. And the third is relatedness. I need to connect with other people. And yeah, so it's much more simple, but it kind of it works differently. And for me, it's kind of harder to understand, to be honest. But it it kind of maybe is easier to use in games because it's competence. Instantly you can think about how achievements, progression, things like that, autonomy. Does the player feel like he's free? Again, remember, free feel like he's free, not necessarily be free.
Yeah.
Something that open world games had to learn, that it's not about total freedom always. And relatedness, I need to connect with other people, and that shows kind of why multiplayer games are so powerful.
Seed Pods link. Sorry, that had me cracking up.
I saw that too.
Yeah, I couldn't stop laughing.
Um, but yeah, and what this goes on to the lens of needs, which
Yep.
I think we could just jump straight into and then explain why thinking about the needs is important and things like that. So this
Okay.
is lens 22 for me, the lens of needs. To use this lens, stop thinking about your game and start thinking about what basic human needs it fulfills. Ask yourself these questions. On which levels of Maslow's hierarchy is my game operating? Does it fill needs of competence, autonomy, and relatedness? How can I make my game fill more basic needs than it already does? For the needs of my game is or for the needs my game is already filling, how can it fill those needs even better? It sounds strange to talk about a game fulfilling basic human needs, but everything that people do is an attempt to fulfill these needs in some way. And keep in mind, some games fulfill needs better than others. Your game can't just promise the need, it must deliver fulfillment of that need. If a player imagines that playing your game is going to make them feel better about themselves or get to know their friends better, and your game doesn't deliver on these needs, your player will move on to a game that does. Satisfy my needs. Exactly. Oh, okay, I'm not watching that anymore. um,
Devious Oatmeal says, could you imagine a game that supplied food, water, and shelter?
yeah.
And that's kind of why you can use some of this stuff in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but it's like the two bottom ones, like physiological safety, that doesn't really apply to games. I mean, it would be pretty awesome to see how a game could provide stability for you. I don't know, like
Well, it doesn't
I
need to
guess in the
be in
form
your
of
real
giving you.
life, right? because you have uh, the endogenous game again. So the within it's the game. So at least in
Oh
the
yeah,
book,
well,
he uses, for example, Minecraft in my version as an example, where in Minecraft you have to build shelter, you have to get food,
yeah.
or you'll die. So those are it's the physical form of the character, not you, and it kind of simulates those feelings in the game. Versus, you don't still have need. You might play so much that you get hungry and you don't eat, but
Mm,
that's not part of the game.
no. Well, I mean, if you look at it that way, I didn't really look at it that way, but yeah, that would kind of explain why you have uh, survival games. They're being so popular at the moment. It's like because they are really catering to the um, two bottom or most important things of the pyramid.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
hope the camera doesn't freak out. Maybe it's time to shut it off and turn it on again or something. I don't know. It seems
maybe,
to
I
be
don't know. It
blinking a
just
lot.
blinks every, not 3 times I've seen it.
Yeah. I hope it's not because it looks like the cable is attached as it should be.
Well, let's see how it develops. So he used Minecraft as an example, and he argues that Minecraft was so or is so was so popular because it touches upon each part of this pyramid quite strongly. So again, food, water, shelter, psychological, which is the bottom one, the biggest one. Um,
Yeah.
that's what you need to build, right? So you feel safe, which is the next one for the zombies that come in night. Belonging, love. So it's a multiplayer game. You can create social connections. You can create,
Mm.
and that's what, again, without multiplayer, it would be much weaker. You can actually, a lot of people kind of date in there, even. Let's not go into that subject. Then self esteem, achievement, mastery, recognition. You can build things, show them off. You have levels of tiers that you need to mine to get to, so you can have a full diamond set. It has achievements, and then self actualization, pursuing inner talent, creativity, fulfillment. Which is, again, you can be very creative. You can build your cows, and you can like fulfill yourself through that. And
Yeah.
that's why that's one of the arguments in this version, at least, of the book, that he thinks that Minecraft was so successful.
Yeah, and I agree. I think it's true. He doesn't really go over games in my version of the book, but I'm a smart person, so I kind of linked it together. When I was looking at it, I kind of got that feeling about why certain games are successful because they cover a lot of bases. Um, Zoot says, "What is this? Some kind of book club?"
Yes, we are
It is.
reading a romantic novel by Jesse Shell called The Art of Game Design. It's a bit like 50 Shades of Game Design. It has
Yes.
these, but they're called lenses instead of shades, and it gets kind of wild.
Zoot says, "You look exactly like me, Tasty."
Oh, Zoot also has a night elf mannequin. Oh, very interesting. Then again, is
Yep,
that part of you? Probably not. It kind of
it
is in the
is.
picture, though.
It's part of my image.
Yeah, it's part of your tasty brand.
Yep.
So the next part talks about intrinsic versus extrinsic value, intrinsic and extrinsic value, motivation. Sorry, do you have that part?
Nope.
Okay, so basically he categorizes then motivation that you can have external or internal. So intrinsic and extrinsic value. Very difficult term. I use it actually also a lot in my daily work. But the idea of that there's different values. So for example, I for example can talk to Tasty and say like, hey Tasty, can you draw me a picture? And then I could say, hey. Pay me. I'll pay you. Pay me. Pay me. That would be really good. No, I'll pay you 50
Yes, I will
bucks.
draw a picture for you. It will cost
Yeah.
5 million.
So
You pay yourself.
then his motivation is money, right? So he's doing it for money. That's an extrinsic. It's a um, you know, I can motivate him to make the picture for me by paying him. Intrinsic would be that he would, for example, just draw because it's fun. So that's he just wants to do because self-fulfillment or something else. So that and the thing why it's important is because these are different methods you need to think about in your game. And he has a good example here where um, in a famous study, two groups of children were asked to draw pictures. The first group was paid for each picture they created. The second group was not. If you believe the idea that more motivation is better, then you might expect that the paid group would draw more pictures and better pictures. And you would be half right. They did draw more pictures, but the quality was lower. The pictures were not as interesting and thoughtful. But here's the surprising part. When drawing time was up, each group was asked to wait, while the researchers left the room. The unpaid children, with crayons and paper in front of them, naturally kept drawing. The paid children, however, did not. They put their crayons down and they just waited. It would seem motivation is not purely additive. Rather, the act of adding extrinsic motivation to something that is already intrinsically motivating slides it along the continuum towards the external blah 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 blah. Anyway, so the idea that you need to kind of like using just these kind of external things like, oh, you're gonna get more points or something, are not necessarily always effective if there's no intrinsic value, like, for example, one of the filling one of the base needs or something else, like, like for example creative. Like if I don't feel very creative, it's a drawing game, and I don't feel like I'm just doing it for the points, then I'll just do whatever is fills the requirements.
Yeah.
So that's that. Do you have the wanna versus hafta? No? Yes? No?
No, in my book it goes straight from the lens of needs, and then it goes to judgment.
Oh, I have the lens of motivation, and then I have the lens of novelty, and then the lens of judgment.
Yeah.
So this is gonna
So
be a solo Björn stream now.
very much.
Push this. No, that's okay. But did that make sense for you, Tasty? So
Yeah. Well, very much. I mean, I think it's important when you're making stuff to make sure that whatever you're using, like the means that you're using to motivate a player, needs to be fulfilling for them. Like for the kids or the students, when we're talking about the thing about they getting money, it's like at some point they'll have money and they're going to be thinking, okay, well, is it worth it? I'm not motivated to make more money because the act of drawing is boring. Whereas the ones that were intrinsically motivated, they would do it anyway because it wasn't about the money. It was about drawing. So yeah, I mean, you'll see it in certain games, and we've seen it when you've played games as well on stream. You'd be like, okay, I get it. I'm jumping, but what's the purpose? Why am I jumping? I'm surviving. If I didn't jump, I would fall down and die. But if I do make the jump, but there's just going to be another jump a bit further, like what's the value of jumping? Why would I do that other than just to survive? And then I would have to jump some more.
So I would say that there's one more thing I could list from here. So the extrinsic and intrinsic, he has kind of examples on what is extrinsic and what is intrinsic. So the extrinsic or external, so examples of those are like if you do something for payment, because I said I would, because I think it's important. Oh, every Juan with the host. Let me just list this first because it'll take some time before the raid comes in. So because I said I would, because I think it's important, because I'm the kind of person. Those are all external. And then internal, there's only one, which is because I feel like doing it for its own sake. Everyone, welcome people.
Welcome.
43 viewers. How are you guys? How did the stream go? We're doing a book club. This is Tastygraph. I'm Bjorn. We're doing a book club where we're going through The Art of Game Design by Jesse Schell, a book of lenses. It's a book about how to design games. That's the first edition, and this is the second edition. So you're just joining us when we are talking about motivation, player motivation. Adam Army is here. Welcome.
Maybe I should turn some lights on. It's starting to get orange
Yeah,
here for some
you're
reason.
orange. You're orange tasty.
Yes, but it's the best kind of orange. One moment.
Welcome everybody. What did you guys do in your stream? So,
There. Now I'm yellow.
well, you're just a different color of orange for me. But
Yes.
where can I get the grill
Sorry.
from the
I
back?
don't.
Oh, you mean my grill here? No.
The World of Warcraft lady from the back, that is something you need to get from Blizzard or from stores that kept her.
Kept her.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mannequin that they used at the launch of World of Warcraft in 2005-ish or something. Lily Bite says, "Hey, Tasty, how come your elf is next to the shelf?" That's an Elf on the Shelf reference.
Are those displays?
We
Yep.
don't have, I don't think we have that game in Europe, but I have heard about it and seen the reference. Actually, I think this light will turn white in a while, maybe.
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 Is it one of
Right
those
now
that
it's
turns
very
on slowly?
yellow. Bjorn looks healthy and I look like a mummy.
I look pale. I'm a vampire. He's a werewolf.
Oh, I'm a werewolf. Then not.
I don't know.
You're the one that's really good at doing the wolf sounds, though.
Oh, those are more. Yeah,
Not anymore.
not anymore.
Oh.
You have to wait for that. So yeah. So the next part for me, again, in the first edition doesn't have this. Only the second edition, which is wanna versus have to, meaning wanna do something versus have to do something, and so again, it talks a lot about neuroscience and stuff like that. But he kind of puts then internal versus external versus then pain avoiding versus pleasure seeking, which we talked about. Vampire Beard explains the lack of aging. Exactly. Well, look, I still have some wrinkles here. All over. Look at this. Wrinkles! I'm dead. Rip. So.
Sometimes I can get wrinkles when I yes. Sometimes, like. I don't know, maybe I'm just so fat in my face. The wrinkles aren't really appearing. Sorry. I'll focus now. I'll be good. Otherwise, I can't be on next book.
What are we developing? So usually I work on which, but today is book club day. Or do you mean every Juan? So anyway, let's go forward. So that is it just talks about pain avoiding, pleasure seeking, and there are different reasons to play a game. So to avoid punishment for rewards, to avoid shame for fun. So here actually there's an example I can read from where he's explaining with the use of World of Warcraft. And let's see if Tasty, the expert of World of Warcraft, agrees. Um, let me see where I should start.
I disagree.
Gradually, these games slide from pleasure-seeking motivations to pain avoidance motivations. So, a lot of games can have different phases of motivations. So, for example, they keep you coming back, but you don't always feel as good about it. For this reason, as designer Sherry Grauner Ray puts it, people don't just stop playing these games; they divorce them. Many World of Warcraft players have had similar experiences. They begin playing because there are so many fun things to do, one of which is to join a guild and then enjoy the friendship and camaraderie of team play. But sometimes guild leaders, in a desire to succeed, pressure their members to play more than they want to. Players want to avoid the pain of shame from their guild, so they keep showing up, and gradually playing starts to feel like something you have to do instead of wanting to do. For an interesting perspective on motivation in your game, try putting each one in a matrix where one acts internal, external, and one is have to, wanna. So I can show it, guys. Maybe, Tasty, are you watching the stream? Maybe you can see it there too. What do you think about that?
I'll see it in 10 seconds. can't read it.
Crap.
Sorry.
Anyway,
Oh, I
maybe
can read it now. Sorry.
did chores. Now I remove it.
Yes.
So the idea is that there's these two different modes, like external motivators, internal modes. I'm getting paid, or I want to do something, for example. And then versus there's reasons to do it, like I want to do it versus I have to do it for a reason or another. Like I have to do it to not, to, for example, avoid shame, or, like to avoid, disappointing my friends or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry about the camera flickering. Seedpod says he's having a epileptic seizure.
Yeah, don't joke around about that. I'm sorry if you're actually having one. Please, maybe if you're starting to feel bad, you should stop watching the stream.
Yeah.
I
I
recommend
could
getting
try to
help.
turn the cam on and then on. Should we do that?
Yeah, try that. Let's have a 5-second pause.
Let's try that. I'm still here though, just no cam. Now I'm turning.
And it's loading.
Let's see if that fixes the flickering. I hope so.
No, it's triggering me nausea.
Please don't read the chat. I have say many bad things about people.
I will do that, Zoot. So again, lens 23, the lens of motivation. Every game is a complex ecosystem of motivation. To examine them more closely, ask yourself these questions. What motivations do players have to play? What motivation do players have to play my... What? This makes no sense for me. I have read this wrong. What motivations do players have to play my game? Oh, what motivation do players have to play my game? Which motivations are more internal? Which are more external? Which are pleasure seeking? Which are pain avoiding? Which motivations support each other? Which motivations are in conflict? It's still blinking.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's a fairly new feature in
Maybe it's a
Discord.
Yeah.
So it could be. I mean, I rebooted the computer before we started. It ran fine for a while, and now it's like not running fine. I don't usually have flickering when we do this, but I don't know. Maybe my computer just hates us. I'm seeing the flickering on as well.
Yeah, same here. Like, I of course can see it. I think maybe if it's the USB thing, but I don't know if there's anything you can do.
Nah, because the cam is not running off of that USB thing.
Weird.
Only the mic. My mic is running off a crappy router or like a USB hub.
So I think, okay, I want to discuss motivation a bit. Let's hope the flickering doesn't do too much, and I'm sorry, guys. The lens of motivation, I kind of find it very useful because I do like to look at why people are motivated, why they play my game. But I do think how it's phrased here is a bit too complicated or like scientific for me. It's kind of hard to put it into those terms. Like, is the motivation internal or external? I just try to make sure that there's always motivations to go into my game, and that people always have a motivating factor throughout the gameplay, and they might change. Hey, the Pink Freudian, thank you for joining us. It was really, you brought in some really insightful comments. So
yeah.
This is a different time of flickering. It's weird. But I don't know if your book had anything more on the motivation part. I can clearly see you thinking about the camera flickering and trying to solve
it. Oh, I am totally. Because to be honest, I think it's more a case of the lighting that's causing the camera to flicker. I mean, that would be the only logical explanation based on what we've seen today. Like, when it's bright, it seems to work fine. When it's not bright, I think the camera is probably working overtime to try to somehow balance the lighting or something, like I don't know, perfect white, something. I'll try to get better lights for next time. It's because it's getting dark outside.
Yeah, it might be that. I don't. When the stream started here, because I'm a bit more up north, it was already pitch dark outside. Like, if I closed the main lights here, you wouldn't see anything of the background. Even like, let me show you guys. Let's see. I hope my camera doesn't go crazy or anything. Like if I, this is on my main lights. So this would be. Oh look, it can kind of survive. This is the darkness if I turn off the almost all lights.
Oh my god, Bjorn is gone. What is
Where is it
this?
going?
Oh, there you are.
Let's put on the lights. The camera goes crazy. Ah! Yeah, we live in a dark place where vampires can survive. All
Yeah.
vampires would truly, they would, during, if you want to hunt a vampire, just go to, during winter, they would probably live up north. That's all I'm saying. And they probably would, during summer, go more south. Tasty.
I go Russian. Special case. Don't ask.
So do you have the novelty part?
No, I only have judgment, and that's like, I don't know, 10 lines of text, and then it goes to the lens of judgment. And also, the motivation section was kind of short. In your case, with the lens of needs and motivation, you had a lot to talk about games as well, whereas mine kind of just jumped over it. So, I have the book for people who don't want to read as much, and you have the book for people who want to read.
Yeah. So the lens of novelty. So it's just um, basically it's exactly what it says. It's like novelty can be very powerful in games. It's something that is new and makes people think differently about your games.
Yeah,
Um, and I can read out the lens straight away. There's not much text, and he just explains what novelty means and different examples. But I think the lens explains it well enough. So lens 24, the lens of novelty. Different isn't always better, but better is always different. Scotty Meltzer. To ensure you harness the power motivation of novelty, ask yourself these questions. What is novel about my game? Does my game have novelties throughout or just at the beginning? Do I have the right mix of novel and the familiar? When the novelty wears off, will players still enjoy my game? So the point of this is that you should always find something interesting. People like to see that there's something new. It's a new experience. It's not just the same. But your whole game shouldn't be totally novel. So again, do I have the right mix of novel and the familiar? People still want to see familiarity in their game. And he doesn't say it here outright, but for example, No Man's Sky was super novel, but it didn't have any flesh around the bones a lot in the beginning. They fixed a lot of things now over since launch, and that's also a danger. So
yeah.
it's
Too
a
little,
thing
too
to
late.
use in the right amount. So thinking about what is novel about my game, it's something I definitely think about personally. It's one of my core kind of. I don't say I want to create a fully novel game. Again, I want it to be something familiar, but put like I think Cuphead, for example, does
Yeah.
that really well.
Yep.
Wants some meat on the bones. Yeah, look at these arms. They're so small. Hey, Wobbly Trout, welcome, guys. I am the moose. Oh, you're from K-Pike stream, right? Enjoys really meaty bones. Yeah. So thinking about kind of, you need some meat around the bones for your game, right? You don't just want it fully be novel, but you also don't want it time for the gun show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Show us the guns, guys.
We're game developers. We don't have guns.
Yeah. Oh, we do, but only virtual guns.
True.
Hey.
We have no bone flesh on. So we don't have no muscle.
Hey, welcome everybody from Wobbly Trout stream. If you guys haven't checked out Wobbly Trout, I really enjoy his streams. He's super funny. Go check him out. And he's how did your stream go? time for the virtual gun show. Yeah, who has better, bigger virtual guns, Tasty? Show us your virtual guns.
You're a better programmer than me, but I can draw guns better.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
I
together
think.
we have the best guns.
Yes,
Have you even
we have
seen my stream?
co-op
Wobbly,
guns.
I've been there. Yes. You have your wife slash girlfriend. I don't know which one it is, but she even is in your stream sometimes. Artist plus
Yeah,
programmer equals
she
win.
does. She does knitting.
Knitting.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah,
She
yeah, I
does like
know. I just like that you picked out that fact. It's like, that is that's actually the reason to go look at Wobbly Trout's stream is to learn knitting.
either that or you can go. He also does art where he's learning how to draw better.
Yeah.
He does animu, and he is a programmer. And he also does voices. Like he'll be all like, he's gonna be all up in your chat, and he'll be like, Wobbly Trout says lots of viewers has custom knitted socks now, and he'll do this with his beard like
Yeah.
24/7.
And then he loves your faces too.
Yes, love your faces.
See?
Exactly. See, we know Wobbly.
We know Wobbly. But if you don't know him, click his name right in the chat and click follow. So, there's a lot of great game development streamers. I'm super excited about the whole our small corner of creative. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's Ermagerd.
Oh my god. So,
It's because he's Canadian.
oh. Now it's becoming insulting.
No, I love Canadians.
No, I didn't mean that.
Oh.
You claiming that it's because he's Canadian, what I meant. Not that you
Oh.
dislike Canadians. Let's go back to topic before this gets dangerous.
Yeah. Let's.
So the lens of novelty, again, I kind of find like the lens of novelty kind of is missing is missing kind of the some meat around its bones. I wish there was better ways to kind of, he just says, what is novel about my game? Okay, I don't know. How do I go about fixing it? I don't know. So I think that's something that there could be more meat around this lens. Like, what would be things I could do to improve the novelty? Like, and then I don't think he even discusses that much. I think novelty doesn't necessarily need to be that the novelty of the mechanics that most people go to, like the portal guns you could jump through. Oh, my mind is blown. Or No Man's Sky, procedural world. Oh my god. I think also like Cuphead has novelty, for example, from point of its art and aesthetics.
Yeah. I think, I mean, it's a fairly simple lens based on what you're saying. So it's basically just a case of looking at your game and saying, how is my game novel or different from other games?
Yeah.
If it's not, then you have other lenses that allow you to kind of get into that. If we go back to some of the early ones where, they would look at the technology, or they would look at what are the basis for making this sort of experience, how can we make it special? And they decided to take the air vents and position them in a way that makes it feel like you're on this ship for real. It's kind of the same. Like you just have to look at the other lenses and see if one of those can bring out something novel in your game. So in a way, this lens is like, I guess it's like a checkpoint. Because
Yeah.
if you reach that and there's nothing special about your game, then iterate, I would say. And the lens kind of says it too.
Well, I think
Wobbly Trout says, what if I want my game to be just like every other game? Then you probably shouldn't make it, Wobbly, because
remember,
you don't
guys, it
make
needs.
games like every other person.
Well, remember, guys, you need to also have the familiar in there. So it's not even the lens as itself. It's a mix of novelty and familiarity. If you reinvent everything, people are gonna be, I don't know, this is too psychedelic. I don't know where the hell I am anymore. So, but I wish there was just even like you said, you would probably use the other lenses, and this is more like a check mark. So it would actually be interesting if you could have a check mark list. Like, is it novel? Is it this? Is it that? It's called One Punch Man. One Punch Man is awesome.
I only watched the first 2 episodes, I think. It was fun, but it's not for me.
I liked it because I watched so much anime. It's kind of meta for me. But
Yeah.
I think what I wish this had was even like if you look at the lens here, I wish it just had a less list here like what are, for example, lenses I could use to improve. What type of thinking should I use to make it more novel? There's probably
Hmm.
some lenses. I don't have the experience to
Oh,
say
your book
which.
has colors. It's
Your book.
true.
Now he's like throwing the book away and going to buy the second edition because mine has colors.
It's like, look at mine.
Put it away! Put it
Mine,
away!
mine has
No! Oh,
novelty. It's a
guys,
novel book.
run!
It's
Um,
gray.
but yeah, I think also why it's important. Like, I think what I see mostly in the game industry is that either you're lacking novelty, you just made a copy of a game, which sometimes can be like for example, well, it's not a good example. What would be a good example? Well, anyway, especially in mobile scene, there's a lot of people who copy to make a quick buck, um, and I think that is I guess if you're just earning money, that's okay. But I mean, when you're making your game, you should make sure that it has novelty. But if it's only novel and has nothing familiar, then the other thing is like it's only like sorry, I'm getting confusing myself.
Sorry, I want to give credits to Mushroom back there, bro. It's actually true. It white balanced my camera off the white page, so I'm just gonna try to fix it if I can. Let's see. Can we do this? Catch some more.
I think it's okay. Now remove it fast. It's a bit better.
Magica Triku.
No, we're teaching you how to white balance cameras here. So, okay, let me take a couple steps back because I confused myself just a moment ago. I forgot what I was talking about. So I see a lot is that you have nothing novel in it. It's very familiar to where it's very novel. Like it's either or. It's kind of black and white. So it's then very novel. Everything is kind of trying to reinvent everything, and then it kind of becomes where you have no prior experience, so you can't kind of enjoy the game. I don't know how to say it. Like it kind of breaks the game because oh look, it's blinking again now. Damn you, paper.
Yeah. The thing is, I can't access the settings for the camera unless I turn off the camera
Yeah.
because of the way Discord does it. There's no real settings editor thing.
Well, you can get a
Let's
lamp
pretend like it's not a big
like
problem.
this fill light I have here. Uh,
It's
It
because
actually
the
is an
light I
IKEA
use.
lamp. I just buy these like strong thousand thousand. Oh look, it's white balance search. So 4,000 Kelvin. It's close enough.
Yeah.
So tip of the day. Go buy one of these. These are LED. They last forever. You look for the blue edge. Those are daylight. That way it matches your monitor quite closely. And I use it as a fill, so the color change between these two are not that big of a difference.
Yeah, the lamp I has some weird things in it. I'm not really sure what, I mean, it's like, it looks like this, basically, and then you plug it in,
Mm.
and there are two of them in that lamp, and now I can't see anything. I'm
Mm.
blinded.
Welcome to the stream where we talk about all kinds of weird stuff
Yeah.
and get blind
I was
ourselves.
blinded by the bright light. It's no good.
Well, let's go forward. The novelty kind of discussion. I don't know if there's much. You can something you, probably through discussion would be more interesting, but it's kind of it's hard to get a grasp of novelty in my opinion. It's something that's either there or isn't, and then if you don't have it or haven't found the thing that's in suitable degrees novel, like Portal, I think was a prime example of a game with enough novelty but enough familiarity. Like the mechanics were still a FPS game, but it just used those portals. So that was a
Yeah.
good degree. That's a good benchmark, I think. Where
Yeah,
they
and
didn't try to
also, I
invent
mean,
the
the
FPS
portal thing.
controls. Sorry?
the portal thing, like the actual portal mechanic, that was sort of the novelty about it,
Yeah,
I would say.
exactly. That's what
Yeah,
I was saying.
because the whole puzzle mixed with first person perspective, that was, I
No,
mean,
no, the
we'd seen
first
it.
person was the familiar. That's what I meant. So they
Oh,
have
okay,
the
sorry,
right
then I
mix of
misunderstood.
familiar and novel. So the FPS would be the familiar part, meaning like, uh, I
Yeah.
know how to play this game instantly if I played an FPS game. And then
Yeah.
the portal gun was aimed just like a regular gun, and then but the portal itself was the novelty. So let's say they would have tried to make it too novel, they might have made it like um, totally different control mechanic for controlling the player, and then
Mm,
it would become unplayable because nobody would be used to that or something else.
yeah. Good point. Yeah, I just misunderstood what you said.
No, that's good because you're if you misunderstood, probably other people too.
Not
So
likely.
no. So the lens of judgment, this one you have also. I like this lens a lot. To decide if your game is a good judge of the players, ask yourself these questions. What does your game judge about your players? How does it communicate this judgment? Do your players feel the judgment is fair? Do they care about the judgment? Does the judgment make them want to improve? And he argues here in the beginning that uh, every person wants to be judged, they just don't want to be unfairly judged.
Yeah.
So it's about the fairness, and that's what they talk about in a lot of games. Like, oh, this is unfair, and that's where maybe the game's designer has, you know, judged wrong. Like the judging mechanic is not working as intended. Maybe
Yeah.
it's hard to
Yeah.
in
I mean,
some
an
games.
example
Okay.
of a judging mechanic that could be like, the in mobile games, they started doing that a lot with the star system. You finish a map and it goes up and it says like bing 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 and you get 3 stars for it, and maybe you get 2 stars. Um, it's an unfair judging system if you don't know why you got 2 stars instead of threes. Like in some games, it'll be very clear to you. It's like, this is a tower defense game. You did not defend flawlessly. One mob got through, so you get 2 stars instead of 3 stars. Or this is an endless runner and you failed at one jump, and that gives you 2 stars instead of. So that, I mean, it's a fair system if it is open, if you know why you are being judged as you're judged.
Yeah.
Because I mean, a player could feel like, it's unfair. I have to finish a level without um, without making any mistakes to get 3 stars, but you know, it really isn't unfair because you can get a flawless judge if you flawed, if you know
Yeah.
what I mean. Like you can get 3 stars if you screwed up, unless the game was lenient like that. But then the player might get bored because
Yeah.
getting 3 stars would be too easy.
Yeah, judging is hard, especially in the thing where you like in the mobile sense that you just said. Another thing is like even in the simple form of FPS, you're kind of judged when you die. So the computer judged that the bullet hit your head and didn't miss, and you died now. And sometimes you
Mm,
feel it's unfair because some glitch happened or something, or you were stuck. But that's something that is not inside necessarily in the game's control to do. It, they can try to minimize bugs like that where you glitch, but not always is that possible. But then there is also, I find, a thing that I still feel like is judgment. So if you played Rogue Legacy, you could say that that game doesn't necessarily judge the player too much, but what it does have is kind of interesting because it's kind of judging you. You're judging yourself, and like the game is not in that way. It's judging you. So one of them things that two things that I feel like they do. One is kind of clear. It's the levels, right? How many levels do you have, and how low levels could you complete the game? It's not really judging you again. It's more like completionist, or like how low can you go. The other thing is once you die, you show how many enemies you were able to kill, and it kind of works as the star system. So, it starts showing all the enemies like, and then you can actually count how many rows you killed, and that kind of in a roundabout way works as judging, because you're like, like I personally, when I die, I don't want to die when I have too little money, and also it makes me feel good when I have more rows of enemies I killed. If I play through and I just have 5 enemies and then I died, I feel like I failed. So it kind of makes me judge myself, which kind of removes the is it fair or not, because it's just in my brain. It's not saying is it good or bad. It's just showing how much, which I don't think the book itself discusses, but this is something I found myself doing. And these are also other methods you can use. Flippo's saying, yeah, like most games where the score is determined by the amount of collectibles found, the speed the player completed the level in, I think this is the most simple way of judging how the player did, and it is very fair. Yeah, this is automatically fair because the player himself is judging, and he might actually get a slight reward from it. Mario does the same at the end screen. It kind of shows how fast you did it, and you get coins and stars or whatever in it. I can't remember. Are you doing some book club meetings at your home? No, sadly not. It's only virtual. Look, I'll show you. I'll break the illusion. Oh my god, where's my hand? Ah! Yeah, Tasty's not at my home. He lives in another country.
Yeah.
But
also, I'm really bad at this. Let me see. I have to go this way. All right.
could I see where it is your hand?
Can we just bump heads for a second?
Bump heads? What
Yeah,
are you trying to do? Are you trying to kiss me? No. What is going on? What?
Okay, I'm not gonna
Siamese
kiss you.
twins?
I'll turn my head like this.
This is weird. What are we trying to do? Like what? Siamese twin.
Yeah, the worst part is I'm trying to do it, but it's like with a really long delay.
Yeah, I can do it easier. We could shake
Yeah.
hands, maybe.
We could high five.
Oh yeah,
like,
that is. Oh, that's too
but
far.
again, there's still
No,
a
you need to-
delay. So I'm
Yeah,
like,
back a bit. There, no, a bit forward. Towards me a bit.
towards you. Okay.
There we go. Your hand is huge in comparison. I need to move closer to the camera. There we go. Oh,
I'll move my hand back.
No, no.
Okay, I'll put it back.
I'm trying to match, and you're moving it all the time. There we go. Screenshot.
Viewers, it's
now
late.
Do a happy face.
We're sorry. A happy face?
Screenshot. Clip that for us. Yeah. Thanks.
We're done.
We're done. This is part of the book club. We need to practice that where we can high five automatically. Titanic music playing.
We're really sorry, guys. It's
Sunday.
It's late. We're almost done, and Bjorn is going to be doing some drawing. and I will leave the streaming to the professionals again. I will crawl into my hole and I will stay a while.
So, is there any other good examples of judgment? This is the last thing in this chapter. So, you had the.
There's one that says, it says, does the judgment make them want to improve? And you see some games where the game judges you when you die. It'll be like, it gives a tip that might say, don't go into these things or avoid this or that. Or other games where it just taunts you and it's like, you do know you're not supposed to step into enemies like that, right? But that's kind of a way where the judgment makes the player want to improve if that type of humor resonates with the player. It works for me, but it doesn't work for everyone. But it is a way to make your judgment want to make the player want to improve.
Yeah, I mean, I think the judgment, either self or computer-based, is super important. It's kind of very short, at least even for me. I don't know if yours is as short. It doesn't discuss it a lot, but I think it's kind of
It's literally 10 lines, and that's it. It doesn't talk about it, which it should. Maybe they'll put more into it in the 3rd edition.
Yeah, it would be nice to have more examples.
Yeah.
Because I think this is core mechanic for a lot. Like, not a core mechanic might be a bit heavy, but it's very important for games.
Yeah. In a way, you could kind of translate judge to being rated because we love
Yeah.
that. I mean, as human beings, the majority of us, we like to somehow get a number on a specific performance so that we can compare it to other performances, maybe in the past or in the future. You know, it's like we want to get a number that tells us how many times we did this or that, this, etc., etc. And this form of judgment can also make a player want to do better. Like you see speed runs. The game itself may not time it, but that's kind of, if you look at speed running itself as a game, which is it is, you know, like in the speedrunning game, you use numbers. How fast does a player run through it? That is a way of judging the player, and that is used to make other players and yourself want to do better. Because it's kind of part of the rules of playing this speedrun game, this discipline. Um, at least that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, and feeds into the whole competitive nature of humans and the
Mm,
achieving nature. Even like I achieve this, I get fame, which goes then to the social aspect. So there's speedrunning in many ways. It's very clear why it's so popular because it
yeah,
feeds into a lot of the needs and kind of behaviors of humans,
yeah,
and that's something that's like again there is arbitrary judgment also where you don't really care. So it's important also to judge in a way that the person cares about whatever they're being judged about over. Like how to say, like sometimes I find that when I play games, like especially like prototypes, they have, for example, put how long it did it take to finish the level, for example, at a time. And then I'm not a speedrunner. I'm not doing it in that sense. I'm just first time playing the game. Maybe I played a couple of levels. I don't really care what the time is, but I'm still kind of being shown that so I can judge it myself. But then
yeah,
it's kind of meaningless for me because I like a lot of those games. They don't in the end make me replay the games. Like there's no reason for me to replay them, and then the time becomes, you know, like uncircumstantial. Like I don't really care why I had a 1 minute or over a 2 minute thing,
yeah.
but
It doesn't
instantly you
really make a
connect
change.
exactly. But then you instantly you make it connected to something like you know finishing all levels under 1 minute. You get an achieve like you get something or. There's
Yeah.
a global high score list that's shown also, so I can see I'm ranked 2000. Maybe
Mm,
there's not that many levels. The whole game is about mastering those 10 levels that are there. I start caring. But if it's just like one step in the, 20, 50 levels and, I'm not likely to return to them, then showing the time is not needed. And I think that's also an important thing, again, to think about is like, um, does the judgment make them want to improve? Do they care about the judgment, which are the two last questions of the lens of judgment. So
yeah.
make sure that it's something. And again, we can go back to the lens of endogenous value. Does it have value for me within the game or within or outside the game? So like
Yeah.
high score list would be outside the game, and inside of the game, like we used the example that if you gain 100 stars, you get a life or something like that.
Super Mario.
Super Mario.
100 coins.
No, wait. Um,
Wahey!
have you seen the thing where I think it's Conan O'Brien meets the voice of Mario? It's
I don't think I've seen it, but I have seen interviews with the guy who is Mario.
okay. Yeah, he's an interesting guy.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, like the way that, they had a specific idea of how Mario would be like, and then he comes in and he's like, oh, sure, like it's an Italian plumber. That's kind of his thing. With a name like that, he has to be Italian. And then he just invents this sort of almost Mickey Mouse like voice for Mario, and it's like, it's me, Mario.
Yeah, I do definitely think that it was inspired by Mickey Mouse, which also
I think
why
so.
it makes it work so well.
Yeah.
Is there a Japanese voice for him?
No, because I don't. Well, I mean, he doesn't really say a lot. He only says, it's me, Mario, and then
Woohoo!
yeah, and he does the "Wah hey, let's
Wahey!
go,"
Let's go. Yeah,
stuff like that.
this has become the
I mean,
voice acting channel.
there was a cartoon, but I don't know,
Mm.
Japanese voice for Mario.
For Mario, not Mickey. I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah,
if
for Mario.
Mickey Mouse ever was for
Mickey Mario.
Mickey Mario. So that was the 2 chapters for today, and next stream we're actually just gonna cover 1 chapter. The reason is this chapter is huge, and there's
Yup.
a lot of meat around it. So this chapter is twice as long as any other chapter.
I want to do a really fast teaser. Because chapter 10 in my book is about game mechanics. Not all the mechanics, but some of them, and it really goes into a lot of depth with some of these mechanics, like numbers and stuff that I think will be really useful to a lot of people. So I'm going to print out the viewer list, and I will check it off next week and make sure that you're there. No,
Attendance.
just kidding. I'm too lazy for that.
That would be interesting if you had a stream where there was an attendance sheet. It's like, oh, Billy is not here today. Check. No, wait, we don't check. I
And
will.
we would call names out, and we'd be all like, "Wobbly Trout," and then wait 10 seconds for him to write in chat, "Here."
Wobbly Trout is not here. What is he doing? I will put
And
here that I will publicly shame him for not being here next time he arrives.
Wobbly says, "I'll be too busy streaming."
That's awesome.
Hermagerd, you're streaming.
Oh, is he here?
He's here.
Yeah.
I
Nope,
just
don't worry,
checked him on.
Wobbly. We'll
Check.
at least you're doing something of great value.
Yeah, he's
No.
he's working on AI game,
Yeah.
and eventually it'll reach a point where no human being needs to play the game because the bots can just do it. Like they they're pretty awesome. You should go check it out.
Yeah.
You, as in all of you guys, the
No, just
other
me.
40 people.
So, you wanted to? Did you want it? Oh, okay. Nothing.
I
Yeah.
teased a little bit, and then I was done teasing.
Okay. So
It has numbers in it, and it talks about chance.
So
Look
it's
for
chapter 10 if you have the first edition, and chapter 12 if you have the second edition. So they is getting better soon. Very soon it'll be done. Is it like machine learning AI where it just gets better and better and better until it becomes Skynet and takes over the world?
Speaking of machine learning, did you see the mini doc about Elon Musk's OpenAI that plays Dota 2?
No.
Basically, they've developed an AI that can play Dota 2, and they've developed a system where they can speed up the speed of the game for a 1 versus 1 so that the bot can go through a single game faster than normal people would do it. And then while they're doing that, they're having multiple instances of this bot running a 1 versus 1 game. And all of the collective experiences of all of these bots playing at the same time, that is basically at the point where if you start it today, then in 2 weeks it will be at a pro player level. And after that, humans are not going to be able to beat it. And already now it's actually changing esports because a lot of the professional players who have tried to battle this open AI, they're using strategies that the bot came up with because this machine learning bot makes decision based off of these rules that it kind of has, and that makes it think in a whole different way because not going to be phased by players moving in a specific way. I'll see if I can find the link.
He's walking backwards. And then...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in the beginning, the bot would be walking backwards because, as they say in the videos, like the only rules that it has is like getting hit is bad, dying is bad, getting last hits on enemies is good, and I think there might be more rules probably, but you know that's kind of where it sort of
winning the whole,
learns.
depending on what the mode is, winning the game
Yeah.
mode. But
Yeah, but it's only a 1 versus 1 bot right
okay.
now. It's a 1 versus 1.
Well, they
and
already
it's beating
developed
all the pro players.
Google's DeepMind already basically what is arguably the one of the most complex game, which is Go, the Chinese chess. They already beat several of the world pro like masters in that. So going from that, I would say that bots probably can beat anybody in any game at this point.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So in Go, even thinking, what was it, 3 steps ahead or 5 steps ahead, there's already a billion different moves you can do. Have either of you played Go or Baduk? Yeah, I've played it a bit. Not into where I would I understand the basics and some of it, but it takes years to learn really well. Yeah, that DeepMind thing is seriously impressive. It is. Again, but there is other also people who develop the same thing as like these kind of machine learning, like learning to be better than the players. I don't think there's still challenges ahead, but I think it's already proven where we know that they can do better than us. We can teach AI to beat us in every game. Thanks for the link. I need to check that out. I'll put it also in our Discord. So if you're not in our here now, or you can join our Discord, and it will be there too. Oh, I can't put it right now, but I'll put it in after.
Yeah, but you know, if you're not on the Discord, you can join it because there's a lot of interesting stuff being posted in the article channels.
Yeah, and of course you can always talk to us through there too. We can ask questions, or if there's something we missed, or give feedback on the book club itself.
Yeah.
Brofist. So, we're gonna be back next Sunday with the book club. I'm gonna continue still and draw something, so we have post challenge, which we're gonna do. We haven't yet chosen any theme. Do you have any ideas, Tasty?
How about
put you on the spot?
How about mounts and their riders?
Mounts. That's interesting. Should I just do one picture or should I do several? Like I've done now where last stream I just did one picture, but I did it on to almost a finished degree.
Well, I mean, you could let viewers decide. I have a lot of different names for my boards on Pinterest. So
I don't want to randomly select TMI, dude.
No, it's like, you know, I have one called Knights. I have interesting hairstyles, negative space, fantasy portraits, Lovecraftian skulls.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Like, I'm trying to think. Like, that's a good idea. Someone on a mountain, because they have two different shapes. What?
I just got like a little bit of an idea. It is October,
Halloween.
So maybe all of October you should draw Halloween-inspired stuff.
What if I find a headless horseman? That's what I'm gonna draw. That's Halloween. It's a rider on a horse.
Yeah.
There we go. Look, we're genius. This is why we're game designers. Not.
I think it would be neat. I mean, it's very Halloween-y.
Yeah, I can make his head a pumpkin. That way it's even more Halloween-y.
Devious Oatmeal says, make it better. Unorthodox mounts and their unorthodox riders. I actually have most of my stuff in my mounts and riders and their mounts. That is like unorthodox stuff, like mice riding on frogs, and there's a guy riding a crane.
I'm sitting at the edge of my seat all the time, like what he's gonna say. Like I have
No,
Anime
don't
girl
worry.
riding a toaster. Exactly. That's what I'm waiting where it goes weird.
There's a
Anime girls with
there's a
whiskers.
mouse riding a turtle and a guy riding a golem. There's a girl on a panther. There's a guy riding a giant chicken.
Maybe the mount could be something. What if the headless horseman would be riding something weird? What would be Halloweeny?
This is the link to my board,
Weird.
so people can add stuff or look at it if they.
Yeah.
Anime girl riding a toaster.
Yeah. So
It could be a like a piece of bread riding a toaster.
that's just a toaster, dude.
I know, but like if the bread is more like animated and it's sitting on top and it's all.
Animated. I'm just
Uh-huh.
drawing a still picture, dude.
Oh yeah, but I mean, dynamic.
Yeah.
Devious Oatmeal says a cup riding a lamp, an emu riding an elephant, a toaster riding a piece of
Piece of
bread.
bread.
That would be more like it would be riding it downhill or something, almost like a sleigh in
Mm.
snow.
Yeah, I'm not gonna probably draw anime because I used to draw quite a lot of anime, and I'm trying to learn other styles that I don't know that well yet. But
I
we
thought
could
that's
definitely
why
do
we called it animu now.
exactly
So you can still draw it, but we just call it animu.
anime.
I guess not. Okay.
No, no, it's not
Denied.
not different enough. I'm
Denied.
not good at anime. I just drawn it a lot. It's a style I feel comfortable within. I'm trying to
Yeah.
push myself into uncomfort, where I'm so
Yeah.
uncomfortable that I just cry for 2 hours on the stream. A still pitch can be animated, Bjorn. Oh, it can, yeah.
What
Still
else do we
picture
have
can
here?
be animated if it's lifelike and but anyway, yeah, I'm not an
You
expert
can
in
draw a
anime.
golem, but that's
Crimes.
kind of easy-ish.
You can draw a dragon flying under dragon, flying a toaster, flying a piece of bread, riding a lamp. That's easy.
Sounds hard.
That sounds. Well, the toaster is hard. The bread is soft.
Oh, true. True.
I should
You can
edit that.
draw. Well, you could go
You're
back to
so-
poses so that you kind of practice that. I don't know. Or you could draw UI elements.
No, I actually UI elements.
Now,
Nah, nah. No UI elements. At some point, yes, but most probably it will be for the Witch game, which I still want to redraw those UI elements.
yeah.
UI elements are uniquely challenging.
It's really hard for me to draw UI stuff. I do a lot of research gathering. It's so different from drawing characters. Having to draw like piece of a UI and make it look game-ish. That is
Mm,
really hard.
yeah, and fit the game theme. That's also a
Hmm.
challenge. Also, another thing, like that goes into the UI and drawing is usually what helps to draw UI is also draw mechanical drawings because a lot of the time the buttons are mechanical and they have different states, and you want to animate those states. So
Yeah.
drawing a lot of mechanical things is also I think useful. Where you have like intricate masks or animated mechanics that can make for some really rad UI if you're able to do that where it has cogs and gears and stuff, depending on the theme again.
Mm.
A toaster dragon goes around from town to town burning everybody's bread into the toast.
Burninator!
Toastinator! Burninator's younger brother.
Yep.
I like that
He has
idea.
large feet instead of a large hand.
That sounds like like that. I wouldn't be surprised if the Toastinator would be burned. What a monster!
I
I
think Toastinator will probably give you something on Google.
sounds
Let me.
like a Christmas Carol or something like a real story that been told through generations. For generations, the Toastinator came and burnt our bread, but not anymore. We are making wet, soggy bread now. called
I'm
porridge.
seeing images of a piece of toast that's kind of like part of it is torn away, and then there's like Terminator under it. The Toastinator.
A trick you can use to help influence UI designs to look at the architecture you use in the game. Yep, that's actually a good tip. Usually, those should be connected. That makes it also fit the theme in the world. What is this with the good tips in chat? I thought we were all about the kappa.
It's
So,
nice.
that's all for the art of game design. We'll be back in a week. I will let Tasty go to do his tasty stuff and draw his graphs. Please
I'm gonna
join
go
me.
eat.
What?
I'm gonna go eat some food and then I'll be back in the
I
chat.
thought you just ate.
I only I only had like a really small plate, and that was kind of like lunch and dinner
Linner.
in one.
Yeah. So please join us for drawing part of the stream. So we will be trying to copy a style, copy a art. We'll have to find some references. I have to, I guess, Google Headless Horseman and try to find something. We'll have a short break. Please don't go anywhere. But if you do, see you next Tuesday when we actually give feedback on your games. So I'll let First Tasty go.
He says we, but it's only really him because I'm not there. But it's an awesome show anyway.
You're there in chat form.
I'll be there in chat.
But that's
Maybe
an
in the
automated
castle.
bot that he's programmed with AI that he learned from Elon Musk.
I learned it on YouTube. I make AI from YouTube. Anyways, thank you so much for having me. It was fun. And we're going to be practicing our high five thing in the future, but not today.
Oh,
I'll see you in the chat whenever you're back from the break.
all right.
Alrighty. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye bye,
And stay
Tasty.
awesome.
So, we'll